Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння, різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пихцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 928 The News. And it's good to see you all once again on a fundraiser night, of course. It's the Sunday fundraiser, and it's a great night for raising money for Ukraine. And also, we've got massive news that Russian drones have hit Latvia and Romania today in a very big escalation. And also, Russia's been hit extremely hard. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine and news from largely the surrounding areas. Not only that, from in the Middle East as well, at least in a footnote, as we have been getting incredibly large news that Russian drones have ended up landing inside of Latvia and exploding around a larger town on the eastern side of the country. And we've also been able to hear that a Russian drone has ended up impacting and exploding into the area of Romania, and others ended up flying into Romania for about 75 to 100 kilometers as they conducted a new attack vector, not over Ukraine, but they ended up conducting it in Romanian airspace. This has probably been one of the craziest and most tense days as far as Russian provocations against NATO that we've seen so far in the entirety of the war in form of drone warfare, and we are going to be going over all of the news that we've been able to get over the past 24 hours. Before we do, though, I do have to make a quick shout out to our fundraiser tonight, Nova Ukraine, which is an amazing nonprofit that has been helping out loads of people, and this fundraiser has been going absolutely mental, raising $1,300 in about 13 minutes. Insane, and hopefully we can keep up that kind of momentum. But with that, it is time for us to get on into the major news that we have tonight, which is actually on the very northern side of mainland Europe and also on the very southern side of mainland Europe for the large part, as Russian drones ended up impacting Romania and Latvia just today. And we're going to be moving on up into the area of Latvia really quickly to cover this news in this direction first. Latvia is a country that is a part of NATO. I feel like that is without question pretty much much every single country within Eastern Europe is a member of NATO, except for Moldova, Ukraine, and Belarus. Those are the only countries that are left that are not currently NATO members. And from what we understand, in Latvia, pretty far ways inside the border, and let me make sure to measure this correctly, around approximately 30 miles inside of Latvia, a considerable distance. 30 miles inside of Latvia is the exact same distance that Belgorod is from the Ukrainian border. To give you all a little bit of an idea of how deep of a strike this was, a Russian drone ended up making landfall, impacting, and exploding right around the larger town, and I will butcher the name of this, of Rezekne. I believe is that may be the way it's pronounced. But the drone ended up landing and impacting in this area, and we've already heard that the Latvians are not that happy about this, quite obviously so, and we've already heard that the Russian ambassador to Latvia has been summoned, and I'll be reading all exactly what Visegrad 24 put out today. Latvia summons the Russian ambassador after a Russian suicide drone flew in from Belarus and struck near the town of Rezekne in Latvia, which we can actually see right there, geolocated once again as the town. We don't know a lot of additional detail and information about this strike at the moment beyond the drone impacting and exploding. We don't know if it's caused any serious damage to property or any injuries or loss of life. If it did incur a loss of life or injuries, we're fairly certain we would have heard about that much more quickly than at this point, so we are assuming that no one was injured or killed from the explosion of this drone around this town. But nevertheless, this is a very serious incident, and it's getting closer to a moment where a NATO citizen or a citizen of a country that is in NATO is going to end up getting injured or killed. This town of Rezekne is not a small one. Rezekne is one of the larger cities within Latvia's eastern region. And hopefully this map will load right here so that way I can get you all a bit of a better look at this town. This is the town of Rezekne, and we can actually see that it's big enough. It has a semi-ring road surrounding it. Usually ring roads are only maintained for towns that would be too large for the kind of consistent traffic needed to be able to pass through it. So for that reason, they built a ring road. That's kind of giving you all the idea of how big of a town this is. Another thing that I would like to share with you all is the actual population of Rezekne, and let me go grab that really quickly and tell y'all, it is around 28,000 people. This is the largest town that has ever ended up having a drone explode near it in the entirety of the war that's within a country that is a part of NATO. 28,000 people doesn't seem that big, but let me remind y'all of where other drones have exploded so far in other places. And it looks like our map's lagging a little bit, sorry about that. But down here in the area around Karyzh, which is somewhere about right here, somewhere in this area of Poland, that town has a population of about 4,000 people, which isn't really that big. There's Karyzh right there. It's not an incredibly big town. I believe it's actually far smaller than 4,000 people. I think it's about less than 1,000. Once again, giving you all the idea, population density there isn't really that high. Not only that, but Russian drones that have ended up falling and impacting on Romanian land have ended up hitting areas where no one may be living at all, save a few dozen people. This is the first time that we've ever seen a Russian drone get this close to hitting a populated area and possibly causing injuries or death amongst the local population, which would be a very serious incident. Not only that, but at the exact same time, we were also able to get some very crazy news coming out of Romania as well, as the information came out that not only did a drone explode within Romanian lands, but the Romanian Defense Ministry confirms that this morning a Russian drone violated its airspace, crashing in a non-residential area. And there was also another event that happened that I did not put down on the map, but you can find on our Twitter, and the Twitter is linked in the description below. But let me quickly go grab the Twitter and show this to y'all, because this was also a pretty insane thing that actually happened today. So let me scroll down and try and get this on Twitter. And so let me scroll on down. I need to make sure to find this exact statement where it was. And let me see here. Here we go. This is the one I'm looking for. So this is the one that probably is going to be more outraging to people than another drone landing and exploding inside of Romania. This one. Russian suicide drones violate Romanian airspace. Romanian fighter jets were scrambled, but the drone took a turn toward the Black Sea after 75 kilometers and left Romania. So this drone didn't just fly right across the Danube and end up exploding on the other side of the Danube. This drone flew 75 kilometers through Romanian airspace with Romanian jets escorting the thing the entire way, and then it just veered out and no one did anything. No one shot it down. No one did anything to respond to this drone. Everyone just sat there and watched it fly above pretty much the entire area of the Danube River Delta and responded not a peep. This is absolutely insane.
What's up with that though? Because I saw both of these reports earlier, and they were reported in the short war video earlier today. But I couldn't come to grips with what the actual situation really is here, because obviously those two reports are contradictory. So we're left with only two options here: either there were two drones that crossed over, and we're only being told about one from the Ministry of Romania's Defense. Or maybe there's contradictory information and only one of these versions of the story is correct. But I would agree, this version right here about the thing flying through the airspace and making a left toward the Black Sea and flying out, that would be actually worse, in my opinion, than the thing actually crashing in some non-residential area inside of Romania. So what do you think the deal is? Is it two drones, or is it just like contradictory stories?
It had to be multiple drones, because we are hearing that one did impact and explode. We're hearing that another one flew through Romanian airspace for about 75 kilometers. So it's quite clear to me that these are two entirely separate drones in two entirely different stories that came out for two different drones. So both of them are accurate from what we are able to tell. And once again, showing that the Russians are violating NATO airspace deliberately at this point. Do y'all know how far 75 kilometers is in imperial measurements? That's about 50 miles. 50 odd miles that this drone flew through Romanian airspace, and no one shot it down. No one did anything. Let me give you all an idea of how big 50 miles really is. So let me do this for our European viewers, considering that most of our European viewers are from the UK. Let me measure 50 miles from the center of London out into the countryside. So, you know what? This may be a good one. 50 miles is about the distance in a straight line from central London to Oxford, just to give an idea of how far that drone actually flew through Romania. Or better yet, for some of our American viewers, to kind of give a little bit of a context of the distance here, 50 miles from the Romanian border through the Romanian border and then back into the Black Sea would be from central New York to approximately the area of Trenton, New Jersey. That's how far this drone flew through Romanian airspace, and no one shot it down. In fact, the Romanians were there. They scrambled their own fighter aircraft to intercept this Shahed, and then they just flew around it, keeping an eye on the thing but not shooting it down. The insanity of this is crazy. I cannot say enough. This is getting to a level of clown levels of non-escalatory measures. Because we are seeing right now, the Russians are deliberately pissing on NATO airspace and NATO sovereignty. They will fly a drone 50 miles through Romania and not give a care in the world. They will let a drone fly 30 miles into Latvia and let it explode near a populated area, possibly injuring or killing someone, and not care at all. This is the most insane things I have ever seen so far in the war, in terms of the kind of actions that have been taken by Russian drones, the violations of the airspace that have resulted in that, the possible damage and death that could have resulted, and then the complete inaptitude and inactivity of NATO as a whole to be able to intercept these drones and destroy them or do something about the matter. And a lot of people have been talking...
Also, by the way, not only does this look bad because we didn't shoot the drone down when once again it crossed into NATO airspace, another thing this tells us is apparently they don't have very good air defense on the border right there in Romania. Or at least that's the conclusion I'm reaching here. Apparently they don't have very much, or if they do, they simply chose to basically deactivate all of it and not shoot down the drone that was incoming. And to me, that would seem a little bit weird because the whole point you have air defense is to be able to shoot down drones like this that come into your airspace. So I'm beginning to think that maybe they don't have very much along this border, which would be very odd because Russia constantly strikes around this spot. But it sounds like Romania was completely relying on their fighter jets to go and take this thing down, which is a little bit weird.
I gotta say, it's absolutely crazy. I don't even know what's going on at this point. Maybe there is no air defense, like you're saying. Maybe there is air defense, and everyone just doesn't shoot stuff down. Like, maybe they have an order telling them, don't shoot anything down, just be there. I don't know what's going on with this. It's absolutely crazy. And so we have heard that a lot of people here in the live chat are putting in their comments on what they think about this, what they think about the Russian drones violating NATO airspace like they did today, not only in Romania, again, for like the 90th time, but for the first time ever in Latvia. And I don't even know how the hell that happens. Like to be honest with y'all, let's think about that. Let's let's do a little bit of math here. Ukraine is in the southern part of Europe. This is what we would generally call southeastern Europe, if you wanted to call anywhere southeastern Europe. So Latvia, the closest Latvia is, it's one Belarus away from Ukraine. So how big is one Belarus? One Belarus is approximately 340 miles or so away. And then the town of Rezekne is about 390 miles away from the border of Ukraine. Not the target that they would be trying to hit in Ukraine, from the border of Ukraine. So let's put that in mind. An FPV drone, a kamikaze drone, most likely a Shahed 136, flew over the Russian border into Latvia, 400 miles away from Ukraine, and ended up exploding near one of the largest cities Latvia has within that region. How in the world does that make sense? Someone tell me how that makes sense. That seems like a direct provocation if I've ever seen one, because that drone wasn't even anywhere near Ukraine. There's no way that you can even excuse the flight of that drone and go, oh, well, I mean, maybe they missed a target. Luckily, no one was hurt. How in the world do you miss the target by 400 miles? That's like the range of the drone itself. Like, that's crazy right there.
Also, I seen the live chat. One of the viewers, Bass Billy, he said maybe they didn't shoot it down, meaning Romania didn't shoot it down, because they wanted to see where it was going. That's what I'm thinking. Honestly, I mean, that's a possibility. At this point, your guess is as good as ours at this point, because I really don't know why they didn't shoot it down. But that would be a very risky strategy to let's see where the thing goes, because it could go toward a populated area. It could be that Russia woke up and decided they're going to start killing NATO civilians today, and they're going to go send that to a really populated city. I don't think you want to wait around and see where it's going. It should be immediate. Like, once that thing looks like it's about to cross the border, have the thing locked in, fire and shoot the thing down immediately to let Russia know that if that thing even goes an inch over the border, it's going down. Because where's the escalation in that? That's just self-defense. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. What could Russia say? Oh, you shouldn't have shot our drone down because that's our drone. It was going into your airspace, but it's our drone. Don't shoot it. That wouldn't make any sense either. I don't think anybody's going to get behind that and back Russia up on that, except for like nutcase countries like Iran. But I just don't know. It seems wild, the whole thing.
It's absolutely insane. And a lot of people have been weighing in on what this actually is on the Russians' end. What was the intention of having these two drones fly into Romania and into Latvia and end up two of them striking, one in Latvia, one in Romania, and then a third drone ended up flying over Romania for about 50 straight miles and then ended up veering back out into the Black Sea. What was the actual intent of something like this? And so a lot of people have been throwing in their ideas. Some people are saying that it was probably probing NATO air defenses and seeing if there was any at all, which may be possible. Some others are saying that it was a big FU by the Russians to NATO, showing that they'll violate air sovereignty of NATO countries, and they know that no one's going to do anything about it. Some people say that it's just sheer Russian incompetence. Somehow the Russians literally just miscalculated where Ukraine was by roughly 400 miles and ended up flying a Shahed drone into Latvia, of all places. And then some people are a little bit unsure and undecided. But loads of people have been weighing in on this and giving their opinions and their input on what were the Russians actually trying to do with these drones in impacting NATO countries or flying right over them for about 50 odd miles. So Matthew, what are people saying about that, and what are you thinking about it?
All right, so our poll asked about the audience's assessment of what's happening with these recent drone incursions into NATO airspace by Russia, and 54% said it's intentional by Russia and they're probing NATO defenses, while 24% said it's merely a big FU by Russia, like the enforcer said, to let us know that we're basically weak, and 16% said accidental, it's Russian incompetence. And I would have to say, the one option that I would rule out is the fact that it could be accidental or Russian incompetence. I don't see any way possible that would be the case. It's happening too often in various countries in NATO, which is obviously right off the bat very weird. And also, it went way too far off course to be an accident. So between those two variables right there, I would say it's definitely not accidental. So it's between probing defenses or basically telling NATO, F you. And between the two, I think honestly it might be a combination of both. Russia's taking out their anger by doing this, and also they are finding out that we really don't have many air defenses along these borders, which is weird because you'd think we would have tons of air defenses there, but apparently we don't. And also we're not willing to shoot stuff down either. So I'm actually with the 54%, but I'm kind of in between options 1 and 4. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that In my opinion, it is a mix of both, like you were saying. I think it's the Russians not having a care in the world about NATO's sovereignty or the sovereignty of their airspace, and they're clearly trying to show that and maybe even provoke a reaction of a sort, or a lack of a action, which is enough in its own right, or they may be just trying to give a big F you, and also it may be trying to probe NATO's air defenses. Either way, it's not a good look. This isn't a good look at all for NATO. And we've said this time and time again, every single time this has happened, especially with Romania. This is the first time that we've ever seen anything happen to Latvia, of all places. But let me explain what kind of message is being sent by NATO to the Russians, to the rest of the world, but really particularly to the Russians, because the NATO alliance is really built as an alliance that combines collective security interests against the Russian Federation, and back in the day, the Soviet Union. NATO is showing, by allowing Russian drones to fly through our airspace, our collective NATO airspace, that we have absolutely no real spine, no backbone to be able to defend our own skies. Now, a lot of people keep on going with the context, well, no one was hurt. But do you let someone break into your home and wander around when you have kids inside of your house, and as long as no one gets hurt, everything's fine? People can just keep on breaking into your house, and that's a-okay? I have a feeling that most of y'all would probably call the police and try and have something done about someone breaking and entering your home, even though no one was hurt at all. This is a nation, a country that has a national sovereignty of its own. It is also a part of a massive, the largest collective security treaty, collective defense pact in the entirety of the world. There is no other defense pact out there that combines the military strength and power that NATO has in this modern day and age. And that alliance is built entirely around the context of defending oneself from possible aggressive and dangerous actions from foreign nations, particularly the Russians. When we put that into mind, and then when you see that there's no reaction from NATO whatsoever, and for some reason, higher up nations on the NATO chain of command keep on sending the message down the chain that no one's to respond whatsoever about any kind of provocations from the Russians. They could fly a drone into your house and blow up a whole family, and you dare not respond, because otherwise there might be hell to pay because we appropriately defended ourselves against the threat. That is ridiculous to me. This is absolutely crazy. We've been saying this for months and months again. We're not only seeing right now that the Romanians are ending up having a problem with the drones continuously just landing just south of the Danube and exploding in the farms, we're now starting to see that Latvia somehow, 400 miles away on the other side of Europe, is now under attack as well. I mean, that's crazy. That's absolutely insane. There's no way that anyone could come out and say this drone veered off course. How is that off course? That's not even close to the course. Any course flying into Ukraine would be 400 miles away at a minimum. How in the hell can a drone veer off course by 400 miles, considering that they fly about 60 to 70 miles an hour? There's no way. You just can't even explain that one away.
Also, Enforcer, I see some folks in the live chat saying that NATO would no way start a war over this. And honestly, in my humble opinion, I don't think that this is necessarily like war-provoking here or Article 5 worthy, even though it is quite bad. It's not necessarily just like, let's go to war right now. It's like, we need to put a little bit more thought into it than that. But at the same time, my problem is with not shooting the thing down when it crosses into NATO airspace. That's a huge problem. And number two, we don't even really give a proper response to it when it happens. Like, nobody comes out as a collective whole in NATO, like a leadership. Nobody comes out and says, we will not tolerate that again. And they draw a red line and say, if it was an accident, that's fine. But next time it happens, we're going to shoot the thing down and we're going to consider taking action against Russia. That would deter Russia if we were to do that. At least in theory it would, or at least it would be a good attempt to curtail Russia's efforts to fire stuff into NATO. But right now, we don't see any response whatsoever. That's where I take issue with it. But I'm not advocating we go to war over it. I'm just saying that we need a response and we need to shoot stuff down.
That's what I'm saying as well, but it's outrageous that we're not. This isn't something where we have to go, this Russian warship is in international waters. Are we going to blow it up and risk going to war? This is something along the lines of, the Russians are flying a literal bomb into our skies. Are we going to allow that to pass or not? And the answer should always be no. Like, if the Russians can do whatever the hell they want in the war in Ukraine, as long as it isn't nuclear, chemical, or biological, which we've already told them they cannot do, they could go and missile any site in Ukraine that they'd want to. They can end up committing as many crimes against humanity as they wish. And we will continue to just sit back and do nothing, because that's our stance right now. And whether we like it or not, that is what it is. But then to sit there and also say, they can do whatever they want in the actual conventional war that's going on in between them and Ukraine, but also if any of their bombs for some reason start flying into NATO and start landing in NATO and exploding in any country whatsoever, no one's to do anything. We're just going to sit back and let them blow up, and we're just going to pray that no one gets killed. That is crazy to me. Because if we're going to say that we're not going to get directly involved in the war, can we at least assure the eastern members of the alliance, the bulwark of our alliance that's actually facing the adversary, that they actually can protect themselves and shoot down the incoming drones? Is that too much to ask, or is that just absolutely absurd to say that a defensive alliance will defend its sovereignty and its airspace? Is that too much? I feel like nowadays.
What do you think? What do you think would happen? What do you think would happen if we just accidentally sent a few American drones into Russia and they happen to blow up, like in Kursk and places like that? How would Russia perceive that? How would they react?
Oh,
I
they'd
doubt
freak
they would
out.
be silent about it. Yeah, I have a really strong feeling they would probably freak out. I'm not sure if they'd actually go as far as to like do something to NATO, like actually physically respond to it, but they would have a very loud response, at least in words, to what's happening. But we don't even see that from NATO.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I mean, it's absolutely insane. And I would have to say that this is absurd. Also, I see someone, I gotta address this. The Planet Repairman said, you sound like a Russian mill blogger. Relax, nothing happened. What do you mean nothing happened? Bombs blew up on NATO land today. It's in our alliance. These bombs blew up here on NATO territory. We have Latvian and Romanian viewers right now, and their countries got hit. Because if that happened in, say, near Atlantic City in New Jersey, and a 500-pound bomb blew up somewhere in the Pine Barrens near Atlantic City, I'm sure a lot of people here in America wouldn't be saying that that's nothing. Don't worry, nothing happened, don't freak out. That's a big deal. That's a huge deal. That's crazy. Like, that's crazy to mitigate this to sound like it's nothing. Like, a Shahed is a bomb. It's a flying bomb with wings. One of them hit Romania. Another one flew 50 miles through Romania, and it could have veered out anywhere, and it could have blown up anything, and it could have killed people. People were in legitimate danger when that thing's flying. It is a literal bomb that's flying through the sky. And then another one ended up blowing up near a Latvian town that nearly 30,000 people live in. That's not a big deal. Like, I don't know how in the world you can say that's not a big deal. That is a huge deal. That's crazy to me that people would try and mitigate this to be nothing. Because I'm telling you all this. If Al-Qaeda flung a bomb at America and it blew up on a farm field in Virginia, everyone in the country would be talking about that. Because you know something? A Chinese balloon can fly over this country with no bombs attached, and the entire nation is outraged that that bomb, well, not the bomb, the balloon is flying over our airspace. People are absolutely pissed about that. It's not even a weapon, and people are pissed about it. And then when a bomb lands on our allies in Eastern Europe, everyone goes, it's not a big deal. It's nothing. Well, some people go, it's not a big deal. It's nothing. That's absolutely crazy. And that's absolutely insane to me, and I'm not going to say this is nothing. This is a big deal. This is our alliance. We agreed, collectively, to protect each other. Bombs are blowing up on these countries right now. No one's getting killed. Someone is going to get killed one day, and then we're going to regret not having been more proactive in protecting the eastern area's airspace more in the past. That's the way I'm looking at this. There needs to be a far stronger response. We need to create a half-mile air defense buffer zone inside of NATO. If anything starts to enter NATO inside of a national border of a NATO country by more than half a mile, it will be shot down on sight. That should be the rule. Now, I would say that it should be right on the border, but then there's this questionability about, do you start firing it right when it's on the line of the border? So we'll make it a half-mile exclusionary zone where we will not shoot it down, but if it enters anywhere further than half a mile, we're going to obliterate that thing, because these are our skies. The Russians don't have rights to be flying bombs through our skies. If they have rights to fly bombs through our skies, we're going to start conducting missile tests, and we're going to fire intercontinental ballistic missiles across Russia from the Barents Sea and all the way down into the Caspian Sea, because that's only fair. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And I'm of course saying that as a huge stretch, saying that we'll launch intercontinental ballistic missiles across Russia and into the Caspian. But I hope y'all get what I'm saying, because if we're going to brush this aside and say that this is no big deal at all, then why don't we do the same thing with the Russians? How would they respond? I'm sure they would respond saying that this is a massive outrage and that this is pretty much a step to war. That's what they would say. So why in the world are we not treating this like what it really is? It's a weapon that could kill people flying into our skies from an adversary country. Not a good look. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, and we're going to be moving on from that crazy news because the Russians ended up getting their own medicine today as a bomb, a mine, ended up actually rolling up onto the beaches of Sochi. And it was very interesting to see. It almost looked like one of those classic sea mines, you know, the ones that would blow up battleships and stuff in World War I. And they just started rolling it onto shore. Pretty crazy, right?
Damn, man, look at that. It looks like the real deal.
Man, it looks like the real deal. Don't you spoil it, Matthew. but we can see the
It looks real to me. I mean, it wouldn't be fake. It looks real.
Man, look at them. They're just rolling the thing around. They want to blow up.
Now, I'm not an expert here, but I don't think these civilians are experts right here. I don't think they know what they're looking at. I think they think this is real, too.
I think they think this is 100% real. I think someone was trying to steal it and possibly bring it back home so that way they could use it in their next Slav war in the slums of Moscow. But sadly, the mine isn't really real. It's actually fake. And that's why I had to tell Matthew not to spoil it. It's some sort of a rubber mine that they put out in the area that's actually some sort of a buoy, and it marks the barrier of the beach or something along those lines. We can actually see it right here. Why the hell would you make a beach buoy look like a bomb? I have no clue. That's just like a Russian thing, I guess. But this was pretty bizarre to see today because it had the entire world going crazy. They were like, these people are rolling around a sea mine. Like, they're going to die. And it was some kind of like a rubber buoy that just looked like a sea mine. So pretty bizarre.
I guarantee you, those civilians had no clue this was fake. And also, this thing fooled even the experts on like ships and maritime stuff as well. This fella right here actually corrected himself. The guy H.I. Sutton, he's actually an expert in the topic. He corrected himself and said it was fake because it actually fooled a lot of people. There's the real deal. I think isn't that the one over there on the right, or is that the fake one?
That's
without
the
the watermark.
One. Yeah, this is without the watermark.
Yeah, I mean, it's a convincing replica, but I have no idea why those civilians would go pick this thing up and like try to like haul it off. Even if you wanted to save the thing, it's like, why would you pick up a live munition that you think might be live? It's just crazy, man. Like, no common sense in the Russian population.
You know, I feel like it's less common sense though, Matthew, to go, let's make a buoy to mark the barrier of the beach. What should we make it out of? What should we make it? Bright and reflective so that way people know it's a buoy. Now, let's paint it black and make it look like a giant bomb. Like, that sounds like a great idea, right? Like, who in the world thought that, man, in the design process? And who in the world's the city official in Sochi that went, yeah, you know what, we ought to put up like a fake bomb out there as a buoy? Like, that would be great, like, to really mark the barrier of this beach so that way people don't drive a boat up here. Like, that's crazy to me, man. I'm like, what are they thinking in Russia? It's got to be a mix of crocodile and vodka that came to this conclusion. Like, this is crazy to me. But anyways, moving on from that,
I mean, they're gonna wash this fake thing up on shore, and the Russian military defense industry is gonna come out and say, "It's just a prank, bro. It's just a prank." It's like, wait a minute, that's not a fake one. That's a real one. It's like, it looks just like the real deal. They're like, "Oh dear, it went wrong." They probably did it as a prank, like to get the civilians.
Probably so. Knowing the Russians, they probably set up real like reflective buoys back in the day, Matthew, and they were like, "Here, this will keep people out." And the like drunk, like vodka upped Russians were just driving right through the buoys and like mowing people down that were swimming with like the boat propeller. And so they went, you know what? We're really going to get them this time. And then they put up a fake like sea mine or something to keep people away. Probably that's what they did.
Probably so.
But that's insane though to have like that kind of thinking because, like, you know, that's pretty wild. It looks like an actual sea mine. But anyways, moving on from that. And by the way, speaking of which, folks, we are very close to reaching the fundraiser goal tonight. We're at 2.3 thousand right now. We're only about $700 away. So try and get it over the top if y'all can. But moving on from that, a little bit of news. It's time for us to move on into Belgorod, because while a fake bomb ended up being caught on the beaches of Sochi, they also we're getting some real ones today inside of Belgorod, if the map works. And so we can see right here that there was a fairly big fuel depot that ended up getting hit in Belgorod today. and the thing started toasting very quickly. Oh, Bliet.
You know, at one point, I believe this place right here had underground storage, or at least the fuel that's stored here was underground. But the Russians moved it above ground because they wanted to save some rubles. So that's what happened.
Really?
That's what I was told by another post, pretty reliable source. They moved it above ground to save money.
Dang, man. And I gotta say, I didn't expect the wind noise to be that loud in this clip because it was almost like drowning you out. I was just trying to let the clip keep playing. But that's interesting. I never heard that this was apparently an underground storage. But once again, here's a clip of another area inside of Belgorod that has also been hit as well, very close to the other major fuel depot at Yudanovka. And it seems as though the Russians are getting obliterated once again in the fuel depot category, and they're suffering. They're suffering, and it's not succotash. It's just straight suffering. And it looks like the Russians are starting to run out of fuel, at least within this small local region again, which is great for them. And we also got to see that in the area of Belgorod, apparently the city of Belgorod also got hit today as well. It seems as though it was some sort of an attack on the Belgorod Oblast. But here's a clip right here showing that the city of Belgorod was shelled today. You see a little smoke coming up right there. Probably from the last hit, and it looks like something's cooking over there. And it ain't your mama's home cooking. But that's the end of that clip. Pretty interesting to see. And moving on from that, we also got to see more explosions happening in the city. We also got to hear the air raid sirens, those classic air raid sirens.
Мир тебе.
They're very good with the camera work here in the beautiful city of Belgorod, but it seems as though the city of Belgorod was under attack today. Very interesting, once again, showing that a large area of Belgorod was under some sort of an attack by the Ukrainians today, possibly trying to hit military targets in the city and also fuel resources in the surrounding oblast. Moving on from that, and also moving on up into the Kursk Oblast, we did get to see that the Ukrainian offensive in this area has leaked out a little bit more information. Many of y'all will know that the bridge at Karyzh, which was largely destroyed, actually ended up somehow surviving the blast at least a little bit, and we saw a couple of crazy Russians driving their car very precariously over the tiny little bit of the span that still survived from the original airstrike. Ukraine noticed this, and they ended up airstriking the bridge again today and completely destroying it, so now it is no longer usable at all. And so, here's that clip. Oh, and we can see them hitting it again. Oh my goodness! We see the Corn Group just observing, and there's another bomb hitting the bridge again. Also, Michael, you are correct. Y'all actually hear the desktop audio a lot lower than what it really is. Matthew comes in louder. So while on my end, the wind is kind of like toning Matthew out, y'all are hearing him just fine. Just for y'all to know, that is something that's different in between y'all and me. But we can see right there, it looks like that little tiny segment of the bridge they were using was finally smacked out. So they will not be able to use the bridge at Karyzh at all for any reason at this point. And apparently we're not receiving enough quality here on the stream to maintain a smooth streaming, and so some buffering will occur. Oh goodness, Matthew, are you there? Are you there, Matthew?
Yes.
Good. That was a very automated yes, and I'm appreciative of it. I thank you. I thank you greatly. And so it looks like we're here. It looks like the stream is good, and it's all bueno. And so we're now going to be moving on away from the area of Karyzh and a little bit behind the lines. A little bit behind the lines. That would be a great name for a ongoing kind of a episode series here on this channel for short war videos. Behind the line. That's it. That would be pretty cool. But we did get to see what the E-38's looking like these days for the Russians. It's not good. It's not good at all. And we're going to be muting that, but look at them go. Are these UAZ 469s? They sure are. Antiques. We see Desert Cross burned out right there, and we can see a whole bunch of destroyed Russian vehicles here on this part of the E-38. Oh my goodness. Oh, look at that. A year. Wait a minute. That's not even a Ural. That's like a gas or something. Yes, inhale the toxic smoke. Delicious. And now they're driving on some more. I think they're filming from the top of a Buhanka right here. Maybe. Knocked out tank right there. And then the clip ended. But still, once again showing us that the Russians are not having a safe drive on the E-38. And it looks like the place is getting absolutely obliterated. And so love to see it. It's good to know because it's once again reducing the supply capacity around the area of Rilisk, and it's probably going to be greatly weakening the Russian forces in that area due to the lack of vehicles that are actually able to make it into that area of that front. Moving on from that, we also got to see a Ukrainian Visent 1 armored engineering vehicle clearing a path in the Kharkiv. And we can hear some sort of audio. And we can see them here looking around, showing the Fizzant in operation.
Running some kind of crop. Like, what are they running over in this field?
Sunflowers.
Oh, damn. That's a shame.
It's a dang shame, man. It's terrible. And we can see them continuing to just make their way through this endless field of sunflowers as that video ends. But still, pretty interesting to see. We love to know that the Ukrainians are still clearing the way of a sort. And we also got to see that down here in the little town of Gogolevka, the Ukrainians fixed the road sign today. The Ukrainians are doing more for the locals than the Russians ever did. And so here we go. We can see them here with the road sign. And we can see that they're changing the name to Gogolivka, not Gogolevka, because that's actually the Ukrainian way to spell Gogolevka. It's Gogolivka.
You got to admire the soldier that never takes the cigarette out the mouth, even when he's doing anything. He's always got that cigarette. Look at him. There he goes.
Man, I wonder if he's like one of those vape smoking kids who are like, I'm not addicted to vaping. And then you take the vape away and they're like, give it back. Give it back, damn it. I wonder if he's like that with the cigarettes, man.
Oh, if you're fighting in this war, you got the right to smoke a pack a day if you need to.
Man, I'm telling you what, man. You gotta smoke as many cigarettes as many Russians as you're smoking. So if you smoke 30 Russians, you get 30 cigarettes. That's the rule. But anyways, with that, very nice to see that they are fixing up the road sign around Gogolivka. And we also got to see a couple of foreign volunteers taking a picture together somewhere in the area. This is actually an Armenian and an Azerbaijani together in friendship. And that's actually incredibly interesting if y'all do or do not know. Armenia and Azerbaijan actually don't really have that good of national relations with each other. Armenia and Azerbaijan continuously have conflict and clashes over an area called Nagorno-Karabakh, which exists around this little mountainous area right here in between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And time again, the Armenians have claimed the land because technically there's a large amount of Armenians living there, and they say that they're mistreated by the Azerbaijani government, and they've ended up getting in multiple wars, 2 of them actually, over that area. And even to this day, what's actually crazy is that if you're in Azerbaijan and you end up traveling into the area of Nagorno-Karabakh, and then you try and enter Armenia after that, Armenia will bar you from ever entering their country. In fact, you are banned from entering the country if you try and enter Nagorno-Karabakh on the Azerbaijani side, which is actually pretty wild. So with that, pretty interesting to see that these 2 volunteers took a picture together and were actually smiling because it shows that a mutual dislike of the Russians draws everyone together. Even old habits will be thrown away so that way the 2 can get along to fight the Russians. Pretty cool to see. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little area and from the Kursk Oblast as a whole, and we're going to start moving on down and into our location unknowns because we have some very interesting ones down there. But before we do, I see that we have reached about $2,458 here on this fundraiser, and I think it's time to do the thing, Matthew. I think it's that time. That time for the ancient rite. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about?
General order.
Order. It is time for the general order. If you have $5 to throw into this fundraiser and you consider yourself to be a part of the Lee Spring Army, throw it in right now. I've already thrown in a 20 to lead from the front, and hopefully combined, the Leaf Spring Army can overpower the fundraiser goal with superior firepower and end up dominating and achieving another fundraising victory tonight as we raise another $3,000 for Nova Ukraine. And so here they come. Oh lordy, here they come! And the general order is in effect. And so let me put that in there. Because we gotta get the general order out there. General order! And we will be probably knocking out $3,000 here in just a second. And let's see here.
Dang, it's coming in fast now. Look at that. It's racing.
Oh my goodness. We are already up to 2.6. And we're going to be racing up probably to $3,000 here incredibly soon. We're getting there. We're getting there. Dang, it's going so fast. The fundraiser's actually having a hard time computing it. But it is flying. It is flying, in fact, and we are probably going to reach $3,000 here any second now. Any minute now, we will reach $3,000 because we're almost $200 away at this point. We're actually $249 away. Oh, wait a minute, hang on. Oh, we're only 150 away. We're only 150 away at this point. We're now 120 away. We are getting incredibly close. We are less than 50.
Hey, we just hit the goal.
Oh, let's go, baby.
It got smashed. Jugga, Igor. We smish goal. It's a $3,300 raise. We're 300 above goal. Tremendous to see. Another goal smashed. Another successful Sunday night fundraiser. I love to see it.
We love to see it. Absolutely incredible. And it's crazy to think that the Leaf Spring Army has once again passed another fundraiser goal. And crazily enough, this is actually going to be the last fundraiser for at least a little while. And I gotta tell all of y'all this why we're on this at the moment. Here in the future, literally within less than just a few days, we are going to be going on the first vacation we've ever gone on since running this channel 3 years ago. Actually, the first vacation we've had in 4 whole years. And we will not be able to be here for the Sunday night fundraiser that day. That means that Sunday night fundraiser will be skipped. So, if you want to support Ukraine and you want to make up for the week that's going to be missed next week, because we will not be here during that time, make sure to support the fundraiser tonight and get that support out to Nova Ukraine so that way they can continue to help out so many people that they have been in Ukraine for years at this point. And also, let me tell y'all when we will not be on stream. We will not be running live streams from September 14th to September 18th. We may or may not be back on air on September 19th. We'll have to kind of play that by ear and see how that day goes. But if we are not, y'all can be guaranteed we will be back on stream by September 20th. So I just want to make sure to share that with each and every one of y'all because we always want y'all to know when a stream will be down because this is the first time that we've ever done it. And I've got to say, it's been absolutely incredible to see everyone supporting this fundraiser so massively tonight and helping out so much on reaching this fundraiser goal because for 3 straight years now, we have only missed, I think, 2 Sunday night fundraisers over the history of this entire channel. Every single Sunday since the war began, we have run one of these fundraisers. And every single weekend, we have ended up surpassing the fundraiser goal. There's not a lot of channels out there that kind of get the credit of saying that they are able to have such an incredible community that is able to help out so much in these kinds of ways, to help out people, to help out nonprofits that are over there and doing their thing. Not a lot of people get to say that they have a community like that, and we're one of the few channels that do. And I cannot tell you all enough how honored and how thankful we are to know that we have one of the most kind-hearted communities, one of the most incredible communities out there that continues to show that no goal is insurmountable. No goal is unreachable. The Leaf Spring Army has been able to reach every single goal and has continued to grow stronger with each and every single passing day, going through the great times, the bad times, and the even greater times along the way. I've got to say that that is an amazing thing to see. I've got to thank all of y'all so much once again, both big donors and small donors tonight to this fundraiser, because combined, every single one of y'all adds in a massive momentous effort. Every single one of y'all makes this fundraiser possible. Some people may throw in just $1 donation. Some people may throw in a $500 or a multi-$1,000 donation. But every single one of y'all combined is what makes this total what it is. Each one of y'all play a part. And even if y'all aren't supporting the fundraiser, y'all hitting the like button and sharing this around with your friends and family to get them on here and supporting the fundraiser, that also helps out massively as well. And so I got to give an entire thanks to the complete Leaf Spring Army, every single one of y'all, because if it was not for all of y'all, we wouldn't be able to say, long live the Leaf Spring Army, and the Leaf Spring Army never dies. And put an LSA in the chat, and Matthew, list off some of those top donors for us.
All right, so jumping into our list of top donors for the night, the long-lasting list. It's a very long list. And also, by the way, we just hit 3.6 thousand raised,
Dang.
so $600 above goal already, and tremendous to see. But with that, our first major top donor of the night is Toadman the First, who threw in a $500 donation, and a huge shout out to Toadman. He said he wanted to donate even more, but of course YouTube has a cap on it, and they won't let anyone throw in an amount larger than that. So huge shout out to Toadman for that huge support to the fundraiser. Also, huge shout out to Andy L, who put in a $225 donation, along with Hal Rose, who put in a $100. Also, some guy called the Enforcer put in a $100. Also, Just Chillin' put in a $100 as well. And then it looks like AJ put in a $75. And also, Green Arrow put in a $55, along with Paramecium 13. And then John King put in a $50, along with William Cullison, Axel K, Spence Guffey, as well as Matt Cheer, Greg Carrier. Toadman the First put in a $50 once more. And also, Mike Smith put in a $50, along with Dad Good and Skip Tracer 007. And once again, huge shout out to everybody tonight. I know we're not able to call off every single donor on the streams. That'd be a ton of people. But huge shout out to everybody that's donated, small or large, because it does help us reach the goal, and it means a lot to us and also Ukraine as well. But Enforcer, what say you?
I got to give a massive shout out to all of y'all once again. It's been a truly insane night of fundraising. It started off strong. It's already gotten to the goal. Absolutely incredible. It's only been an hour, and yet the Leaf Spring Army has once again ensured that it will never die, and it will continue to live on throughout pretty much all of history. I don't think the Leaf Spring Army will ever truly die at this point. And so with that, I gotta say that a huge thanks to all of y'all once again, both the massive donors that we were able to call off and all of the smaller donors that we were not able to call off but made up about half of everything that was fundraised tonight. A huge thanks to y'all as well. And so with that, Matthew, I understand that we actually have a couple of interesting questions here, and most importantly, a question that we've asked everyone tonight. What should NATO's response towards Russia be about the recent Russian drone incursions? And it seems like a lot of people have been putting out a whole bunch of interesting things about that. And so, Matthew, what are people saying, and what are you thinking about that?
All right, so on the poll question, what should NATO's response toward Russia be about the recent Russian drone incursion? About 58% said remove all restrictions from Ukraine, while 26% said send a strongly worded red line letter letting Russia know where our red line actually is, and 8% said do nothing, it's not that serious. And I would personally say, I'm not sure, I'm not saying you're like totally incorrect, but I'm not sure where the 8% are coming from, because this to me is about as serious as it gets. A weapon of Russian origin going into a NATO country and exploding, that is very, very serious, about as serious as it gets. So I would say, me personally, I'm actually with the 26%. I say send a strongly worded red line letter, letting Russia know where our red line is, and if they cross that again, then there will be dire consequences. That will help establish deterrence, and right now that's what we're lacking. So that may be the best attempt to regain deterrence, is by setting a really hardline red line to the Russians. It would also be nice to remove restrictions from Ukraine, but that might be a little bit more difficult than simply sending a red line letter. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that it's a very big deal. I don't really know where the 8% are coming from. I will largely have to say, while this is an opinion thing, I'm not really seeing at all where they're coming from. This is what flew into Lithuania and Romania, and to just put this into mind, it has a 110-pound bomb on board. That's a pretty big bomb. Like, that's really big. Can y'all even imagine, like, just 110 pounds of explosives blowing up anywhere? Like, and considering that's from a foreign country, isn't that kind of a big deal? Like, I don't feel like I'm crazy saying that that's a massive ordeal. That's a pretty big deal. It's a 110-pound bomb blowing up. Like, let's say this. Let me put this into comparison. So let's say someone here in America goes crazy, you know? They go out to an interstate and they just start going ham on people with a rifle. That makes national news because it's insane that someone would be crazy enough to do something like that. Now let's put that into the scale of power here in between that rifle that some lunatic like that's using and the difference in between a foreign nation flying a 110-pound bomb into your airspace, landing it on your country, and it blows up. Now think about that for a second. One of them makes national news. The other one hardly even makes the news ticker on most news channels, and then everyone acts like it's not a big deal. Isn't that the craziest thing? Like, I think that's one of the craziest things I've ever seen, is that no attention sometimes is given to this by folks. People truly act like it's not a big deal. That is a huge deal. That is a crazy deal. It's a freaking bomb. It let me put this in. Let me put this another way. When Al Qaeda put a bomb at the bottom of the basement of the Twin Towers and it blew up back in the 90s, that made national headlines. Like, people forgot about that because of what happened after, in 2001. But that happened, and that ended up making national headlines when it occurred. And people were already starting to talk about the effect that these kinds of terrorists were having around the world. And then and that was hardly even a big bomb compared to the one we're talking about right now. I think that was like 10 pounds or something like that. It wasn't even that big. And then we compare that to a 110-pound bomb with wings flying in from a foreign country, may as well be considered an enemy, and exploding on your territory, and then that's not a big deal to some people. I'm not getting that kind of logic there, because to me, that's a far bigger deal than most other things I just mentioned, far bigger than really all of them. And so going off of that, I would say that we should really, in my opinion, more so send a strongly worded red line letter and not just sit there and send the letter, but actually follow it through with real action. Actually shoot down drones when they violate our airspace. That's what I would say would be a pretty prudent measure to do. It seems like the only reasonable thing I can think of. And so I hope that does address that the best I can, because it doesn't make any sense to sit here and say, oh, it's no big deal and we don't need to do anything about it. We need to actually tell them stuff's going to get shot down. And if you're not smart enough to keep your drones out of our airspace, you're going to lose them. 100%. No question about that at all. And so with that, I hope that does address that. And let's see. Someone said, you still do not understand Europe. It is a big deal, but we are not gun crazy. So we will only act when war is imminent. Well, I hate to say this, Wolfgang, but if that's the way Europe reacts to things, that's a pretty stupid and weak-spined kind of a way to act. Like, I'm just going to say that. I know many Europeans are not like that because we have loads of Europeans here in this chat who don't talk like that. But if that was the way, hypothetically, that all of Europe worked, that would be a sad, spineless way to live. That's about as spineless as some other people that I've seen out there so far on YouTube. Matthew knows who I'm talking about. That is a pretty spineless kind of a thing. And I would say that is not a good way to do things. So what you're saying is that people could bomb you as much as they want as long as they tell you it's not a warlike bombing, it's just a bombing of love. Like, if we just bomb you and kill like 10 of y'all, that's fine, because we weren't going to go to war with y'all. Nothing, no hard feelings, nothing intentional. We just ended up dropping a bomb on Poland and killing 10 people, and that won't result in anything because the Europeans go, well, I guess it's not a war, so whatever. Those 10 people, they just get screwed. There won't ever be any response or any kind of a vengeance for them. We'll just let them get hit, and that's what it is. That I would say that's a pretty bad way to work things, if that's the way people are thinking. Like, hell, at that point, that's like saying, Russians sent the FSB in. We actually found out that they were the ones who burned down the Notre Dame Cathedral back in the day, just because they didn't like the West. But considering that they're not really angry at us enough to go to war, we're going to do nothing about it. We'll just sit back and just do whatever. That would be a really bad way to think. That would be a really, really bad way to do things. And I know Europe isn't like that, because back in the day, Europe was killing everyone. Like, they were killing everyone on the continent. They were killing everyone everywhere else. So I know that that's not the way Europe really is, because Europe has shown in the past they're certainly not like that. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. But with that, we are on to the next question, because we actually do have a couple of questions lined up. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so real quick, a big shout out to James Hughes. He threw in a $200 donation to the fundraiser, and that's massive support for the fundraiser. We're now up to $3,853 raised, which is tremendous, and huge shout out to James for that generosity. And now moving on to our first question of the night. This one's going to go to actually a super chat that we missed from the other night due to some technical issues with our stream. We did not get those ones. So returning to it, this one goes to LSA Sergeant Figment, and he said, "God, please has a historic hood review," and he gives some coordinates here. And he said, "I was here while I was traveling in Europe also, and check out these other coordinates."
And thank you so much for that support, LSA Sergeant Figment. By the way, just letting you all know, this super chat didn't come in tonight. It came in last night. But Matthew, could you copy and paste those coordinates into the chat so that way I can go and put them in and we can look around at them?
Yes.
And
Also, are you not able to copy and paste out of the spreadsheet?
Actually, that's an interesting question, Matthew. I actually didn't think of that one. Yeah, I can actually copy and paste out of the spreadsheet. Yeah, no worries. Don't copy and paste. Actually, now I can. Let's see here. Yeah, now I can't. So I think I'll have to have you put it into the chat.
And why won't it let you?
Because when I click on the box, it doesn't do it. That's all I can say. Probably not best to troubleshoot it live on air because that can take up precious time.
Hold on just a second. Let me copy and paste it.
And
all right, so the first one is in the chat.
And there we go. We finally got it in the chat. So let me copy and paste that from the chat. And let's see here. And let me see. Chat moved. Don't you hate it? Don't you hate it? Okay. So now it's, hang on, y'all. I'm so sorry, everyone. This is taking a little minute. Coordinates are kind of hard to do sometimes. But let me grab that and try and throw it in E. And so here we go. And any second now, it will load. Oh, it's in Prague. Okay, this is going to be a good one. If the map loads, we're kind of having some issues tonight still. I don't know what it is. My internet never really fully recovered from the whole DDoS-ish thing that happened at the beginning of the stream yesterday, so it's been a little bit slow today. That's something I've noticed. But beyond that, let us drop down and take a look at this. Oh, wow.
Oh, look at that, the Prague.
Man, the Prague. You know, Matthew, if you see frogs in Prague, are they called Prague frogs?
I guess you could say that, yeah.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah, Governor, yeah. So let's see here. What does that cathedral look like? Wow, that is a really nice cathedral. I like it, although the top's blurred out for some reason. And this is from October of 2009. This is like a totally different world than the world we live in these days. Pretty crazy, actually, when you think about it. But really nice. Now, I gotta say, huge thanks to you once again for showing that one. And let me go grab the other one. Do we have the other one, Matthew?
Let's see. Let me grab that other one real quick here. Let's see here. Copy and paste. And there we go.
And so let's see here. And there we go. And we will wait for the chat to move it up a little bit. And so let's see here. Here we go. Let me go grab it. Let me go copy it. And let me go paste it. And so we will paste this. And so let's go to the next one right here. Oh, this is also inside of Prague. Nice. I like this. It's kind of like a local Prague-ish thing. And so we'll wait for that one to load. And oh, that's that cool tower. Okay, so this is a really, really cool tower. I think it's actually, if I'm correct, it's connected to a bridge. No, it's actually not. I'm entirely wrong about that. It is just a clock in the middle of the city. So it's kind of like their version of Big Ben, if you want to call it that. It's a clock tower. But that is still incredibly cool. Really pretty, actually. Now, I don't know what these things are called. They're very specific to like Czech architecture, but like this Prague-styled roof or this Czech-styled roof, I really like those. I think they look incredibly cool on just about any building they've ever put that on. But also the square is really nice too. Like, this is a really beautiful place, actually. I'd like to go to Prague and see it one day. Wouldn't you, Matthew? Wouldn't you like to see it?
I'd like to go to Prague, too. I have a feeling, though, that the place is crawling with Russian spies, probably. I have a suspicion about that.
Блед, пиздите нахуй, блед. Maybe we could get hooked up with the foreign minister and get some protection here in the Czech Republic. You never know. But beyond that, still a really cool place, I have to say. And a huge shout out to you once again for supporting the channel last night, LSA Sergeant Figment. Sorry that we didn't catch that then. And thank you for giving us a historic hood review. This place is beautiful, and I would love to see it one day. No doubt about that. And also back in the day, this used to be one of like the crown jewels of Austria-Hungary, if the map works with me. And it is finally working with me. But this used to be a crown jewel of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. But the really, really important cities in Austria-Hungary were Vienna and Budapest. Because Austria-Hungary, unlike others, was actually a dual monarchy. So they actually had two capitals, Vienna and Budapest, at the same time. Which is really weird, and that's a really odd way to work things, but that's how they did it, and it didn't really work that well for them because they ended up collapsing at the end of World War I and turning into the load of countries we see today, and then the now extinct Yugoslavia, but still kind of interesting in its own way. But with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And a big thanks to you once again for showing us those historic hood reviews. And with that, we are now on to the next question.
And our next question here, the second and to the third one, that is. This one goes to AF Kaplan. He says, has NATO made any official statement regarding the drone incidents in both Romania and Latvia?
We have not seen any official statements. There has been no statements at all. And that's one of the things that's also incredibly annoying is that something major happened. People could have been killed. It's a pretty serious incident, and then it's completely downplayed by NATO, and there's no official statements made. There's nothing really said about it at all. And so I hope that answers that question somewhat well. And with that, we are on to the last question of the segment, and then we're going to be getting on into the rest of the news.
All right, and this one is going to go to Jeff Veeder, who says, which NATO country is most likely to send troops into Ukraine to support the AFU?
France would most likely be the one to send troops. Poland would be the more likely option due to their relative close proximity to Ukraine and also their more apt nature to support Ukraine any way they can. Problem is that Poland will probably be greatly restricted by the United States on a diplomatic level from doing that. On the other hand, France really won't be because France largely produces and uses their own military equipment made inside of France. So they really don't have that much of a diplomatic leash put on them by the United States. So they're more free to move around and do what they wish. So if anyone in NATO would be the first one to actually move troops into Ukraine, it most likely would be the French at this point. And so with that, I hope that does answer that question incredibly well. And with that, it is now time for us to get back into the news that we have tonight. We have a pretty good amount of it. Moving on down into the Kerch Bridge, we actually got to see that the Crimean Bridge is crumbling. Oh, buddy. It's not doing that well. Look at that bridge.
Oh, man, that's like a clunk of a bridge right there. Good Lord. They're worried about the Ukrainians hitting it. It's like it's going to fall apart, I think, before the Ukrainians ever hit it.
Man, I'm telling you what, man. I mean, this looks like a trap house right here. This is not a good condition for this to be in, right? And it's just not good at all. It's terrible, really. And I'd have to say, hopefully they can let it continue to rot, I would be entirely honest. Maybe we'll see the bridge collapse and the Ukrainians don't even have to hit it. Meanwhile, moving on into Ukraine itself and our location unknowns, we had a lot of them today. We actually got to see that someone amalgamated all of the clips that have been made so far, showing all of the Dragon drones in use. Those are the ones that carry the thermite and burn them over the tree lines. They have been used on literally every single part of the front line, all the way from Zaporizhia and all the way up into Kursk. And the thing that this person said was, isn't this cool? It's like showing that the Ukrainians have some sort of like unified brigade level communication. And that's largely on point. It's a very interesting observation to make in this form, geolocating all of them over the course of about 2 weeks. But that is actually true. From what we know, the Ukrainians kind of just sent out a memo on this thing after they saw that it worked in one area. They just sent out a memo to the entire Ukrainian army saying, hey, you want to use the thermite grenades y'all have really well? Here's how to use them well. Attach them to the drone like this and fly them like that. And that's how a lot of units started to use them, and it's doing wildly well. And we're really happy to see that, and hopefully they will be able to continue to use these to great effect. We also got to see that the Ukrainians are starting to amass a multinational coalition of shells, as Iranian, Pakistani, and Indian shells are all ending up in the hands of the Ukrainian army. And we can see a lot of those shells on the ground right there. That yellow one is the Indian one. Indian shells are almost always yellow. But pretty interesting to see that the Ukrainians are finding a way to supply their forces with munitions from India. And India is probably going to be a pretty good arms supplier for Ukraine in the future, because the Indians largely still use a lot of Soviet Soviet-era equipment, or at least produce a large amount of Soviet-era calibers of munitions, and so the Ukrainians can get a lot from them because they're still manufacturing it at this point. Moving on from that and into our next little bit, we also got to see the inside of an M113 armored personnel carrier with some thematic music playing. And we can see right here. Man, I love to walk into my M113 and hear someone moaning in my ear. That's wonderful.
Oh man, you hate to walk into M113 and see the hot dog man. Oh man.
Aw, man. Aw, man. We see them all just hanging out and they're having a fun time. The M113 is a place for fun. And so with that, we're now moving on from that clip and on to our next one, where we also got to see the Ukrainians repairing a Kazakh armored car. And boy, would you look at that repairing of that Kazakh armored car. Is it cool or is it not? I'd have to say it looks pretty cool.
That's some tough work right there. Were they doing like body work to the, like in the first image, like pulling like a dents out of it or something? Or putting on a new front, it looks like.
I think they were putting on a new front, I think. Because I don't really think you can undent the dents in an MRAP's armor. Like, I don't think you can. Like, that would be weird.
That's what I was about to say. Surely you're not like pulling dents like a body shop or something like that out of like armor. Surely not. So it looks like they're putting on a brand new like front hood.
Dude. Man, imagine a tutorial on how to get dents out of an MRAP's like front armored cab. You know, just sit there. Welcome back, Ukrainians. Repairman here. You know, something like that. And then start showing how the hell to repair the front of an MRAP. Dude, I would have to say, man, I'd give up if the front of an MRAP was dented and someone said, hey, can you get the dent out of it? I'd say, no. Like, I'd just be like, nah, dude, you're living with that. It's like got multi-inches thick armor on this thing. I'm not messing with that. I'm sorry. Like, that's what I'd say. But anyways, still pretty cool to see them messing around with it. And we got to see the Russian casualty report as well. And it was very interesting. And so,
oh my goodness. It was juicy today, man. They got 10 more Bobcats. I love to see it. I hope they can cross 3,100 before we head out on our trip, because that would be fantastic. Also, let's see here. I don't think I see our bots today. I think they're bot free, but 10 Bobcats and bot free. It's a good day, but Enforcer, tell us more.
Man, and it looks to be a good day because the bots are gone. It looks like the Kyiv Independent may have nuked a few of them, but 1,270 Russian soldiers ended up getting wounded and killed over the past 24 hours. Pretty impressive. Along with 19 APCs, 47 supply trucks, 4 main battle tanks, 30 artillery pieces, 80 drones, 2 MLRSs, and 10 Bobcat skid steers. We are back in action, baby! And it's good to see. It's wonderful to know that the losses are this high, because it's maintaining the fact that the Russians just suck, and they never will get better. And can I get an amen on that? Amen. Moving on from that area and on into the Vovchansk front, we also got to see the 3rd Brigade shelling Russian positions today, with the funk, gronk, Chad music playing in the background. You just can't have war without funk and Chad music. I wish you could have a war without funk and Chad music. But we will only be wishing for that. But look at that shot. The range on that thing. The accuracy. The 3rd Brigade's really
The
punching.
power.
Man, the 3rd Brigade's tanks are punching like a drunk working man in the 50s who came home and the dinner was burned. He's going for it. I gotta say, look at him go.
Oh. Man, they're punching like they've got some punching powder in their system.
Man, I'm telling you what, man, they might have some punching powder in their system, because there's a lot of powder coming out of that barrel right there, unburned, as a matter of fact. We can see them driving on. We can see another tank waiting on standby right there to get ready to get shooting. And there goes that tank. And then they lay out on a smoke screen and they're out of there. Wouldn't that be nice if as a defense mechanism, you could just crap out a smoke screen and run away? Like, wouldn't that be nice, you know, sometimes? I feel like that'd be great for the infantry. But anyways, moving on from that.
Oh, that could be toxic to the human body.
Not if you're crapping it out. Like, not if you just go. Not if someone's like, "Hey, I'm gonna beat your ass." You're like, "No, you're not," and then you just start running. Like, no, I don't think that'd be toxic. You know, I'm just saying. But anyways, with that, moving on up into the Kupiansk front, we did get to see how the thermite drones work. It was a very interesting clip. Oh, I'm gonna be muting that. Sorry, folks.
They got that rave music.
And they got that rave right there. We see them flying the drone over. Oh, look, they've apparently been drawing with these things on the fields out there. Aw, man, that's Hot Dog Man dragging his nuts over our hometown right there. Just dragging the thermite across the trees.
No, man, that's Hot Dog Man dragging all of his L's across the ground. Man, it's so heavy. I can't cope with all these L's.
Oh man, I lost another 100 subs, but I'm going to continue to insist that the enforcers are irrelevant.
Bro got confused. He said, I'm going to drag my nuts over the town. I was like, no, that's not your nuts. That's the L's.
Oh man, when you're so irrelevant, even the people that are running security at a national convention tell you to F off on site. Oh man, fat L right there.
Man. So security at that DNC said, no, bloke, you're not coming in here. Screw off, you bastard.
Man, imagine being so well known, which is a joke, but imagine being so well known that when you show up to the DNC and you say you're press and you pull out your kitty press credentials that you made with Microsoft Print on your home printer or at the library printer, that they immediately become hostile with you and tell you to F off within like the first paragraph of speech talking to you. I could not imagine. I also could not imagine showing up to a national convention for either side, because I'm just a little bit not in that kind of a category to really want to like make a pilgrimage to one of those events and just see the stupidity that unfolds in them. But still, I couldn't imagine. But anyways, moving on from that and into our next clip a little bit further down the line in Svatove, we also got to see them taking out a drone. Look at them go. There's the Russian drone right there. They're about to take it out.
It's a BP. Oh, $300,000 to $500,000. Wow.
I'm doubting that. Like, this thing looks like it's made out of styrofoam. I'm doubting it a little.
They might have overestimated a little.
Yeah, I think just a little bit. But hey, not bad, not bad. But anyways, moving on from that and down into the Crimea, we also get to see that the Bulava is burning out some Russians for their positions. Check this out. Aw, man. Here I go again. Aw, man. Fat L's across the board. Aw, man. Putting L in the chat, everyone. Putting L in the chat. Aw, man. But that's the end of that clip right there. Looks like another big win. And moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see the Russians trying to burn down a Ukrainian forest near Svyatogorsk, which was a little odd. It's nowhere near an active front line. They certainly were trying to torch it. Ukrainians are getting a kick out of it, apparently. Oh my lord, everyone's actually putting an L in the chat. I didn't expect to. Dude, I was doing that as him.
Yeah.
I was doing that as him, man. I didn't think people were going to take that literally and start putting L's in the chat.
We're getting some big fat L.
Aw, man. Everyone's putting an L in the chat. I guess they must be here for me. But anyways.
Man, this is like the hot dog man simulator, like right here. It's like put all these L's in the live chat. It's like, now I know what it is to live like the hot dog man for a day.
Man, they always sit there and say that I'm gonna make the right turn. Man, my life is as good as is right as the 90-degree angle in an L. Aw, man. Something like that. But anyways, moving on from that, we also got to see a Leopard 284 driving through a muddy river. This was in the 33rd Mechanized Brigade. Pretty wild picture. They also put a tiny snorkel onto the Leopard 284 commander's cupola, which is pretty neat to see. But I like to see it. Really neat picture, but I have a feeling that that Leopard 284 is the dirtiest it ever will be after going through that river. That river looks like it's made out of printer ink or tar, one or the other.
Yeah, something like that, man. It's gnarly.
Man, that's nasty. But moving on from that and down near Minkivka, we also get to see a Ukrainian soldier eating in the field. And he wasn't eating minks. He was eating Ukrainian food. but you can see them coming up over. They got soup in them. They got soup in them. Look at that. Do you eat soup? Well, we do. It's pretty good. But do y'all eat soup? I hope y'all do. It's good for you. We got a little fire going here.
That's like it looks like an Alabama fire.
Man, I'll tell you what, man. Why the hell are we giving all the money to the prisons when we don't even got good roads or something like that?
Because you gotta prioritize locking them up first before you give them a good road. you gotta prioritize, give them a free ride to the prison, make the prison nice. We want to upgrade the prisons. Let's upgrade them with those automatic doors. Yeah, that's right, the automatic doors. Yeah,
and we're going. And hell, we're actually going to sit there. We're going to improve the prisons by hiring another 3 prison guards just to go around beating people for the hell of it, just to make sure and remind them they're here in Bama. But anyways, moving on from that and down. I'm just kidding about that one, by the way. But moving on from that and down near the area of Kursk, we also got to see some Russian tanks getting cooked. Check this out. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, correction. These are the Ukrainians actually cooking the Russians with their tanks. Here's the clip. Boom, and the Ukrainians are just obliterating these people. Look at them, they're firing the coaxial machine gun right there. You don't see that a lot, actually.
the coaxial machine gun. That's like Wi-Fi, like coaxial.
Yeah. Kind of, yeah. I like the way you're thinking, Matthew.
Oh, a little bit of internet. Oh, the Wi-Fi machine gun.
Man, I wish our internet was better than it was, because apparently we're still running into some lag issues. Oh, goodness. Oh, my Lord. But it's fine. It's fine, everyone's fine. We're all good. We're okay. We're okay. But we see the Ukrainians just hammering these Russians.
This is t.me/warlife. Is that like those Southern people like to put that sticker on the back of their truck that says Salt Life on it?
Yeah, it's got to be something like that. But let me.
War Life.
Man, War Life sounds like some kind of a vlog, man. You know, like really, it does. Let me see. Copyright free vlog music. Sometimes people put copyright free as a title to their stuff just because. And let me see here. Let me see, while we're watching these Ukrainian tanks just obliterate the Russians up front, we're going to have some war life here. So, hang on, everyone. Welcome back, everyone, to War Life, and today we're going to be assaulting a Russian position and leveling their entire trench work. Let's go! Okay, everyone, we of course had to get our favorite high-explosive shell, the 3B2OF. This thing is just a bad boy. Look at it! And then it cuts to them inside the tank. Okay, now we're on the Russian position, and we're going to start getting them, or something like that, while the stupid music just plays in the background the whole time.
And you got to make sure you always get a clip of your feet moving on the ground to like clip in when you're moving from place to place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then you gotta you always gotta do that camera cut, dude, where you start the camera looking right up at your chin, which is like the worst angle of your face ever, and then whip the camera up in front of your face while you're walking. And like not like right in front of your face though, like kind of downwards looking up, so that way you can really see like the most unappealing side of your face, which is a little like looking up at it, and then talk to it that way. That's exactly how to.
And also, you got to get on one of those. You got to get on one of those electric skateboards. It's obligatory to be on an electric skateboard and hold the camera and try to navigate through really heavy traffic. You have to if you're a vlogger.
And you have to put these stupid looking patches all over your backpack that mean nothing. Like it's just like it's like Jubilee or something like that on a patch, and it like means nothing, but you put it on there just because you have to look experienced for something. I guess experience with
I might do that on our trip. We're not gonna be able to post it while we're on the trip, because that would violate OPSEC. But I might do like a parody or like satire of like a really over exaggerating the vlogger style and make it cringy as hell of our trip on this thing. Like the vlog music, the feet shuffling on the ground, the whip up camera. I'm gonna have to go get a boosted board and like boost around the airport. It's gonna make it cringy as hell.
Dude, that would be hilarious, man. And also, speaking of which, man, this would be like what I want on our travel vlog, man. Is like showing off like a damaged dirt bike like this. Also, listen to this guy.
Вот в итоге я на мини подорвался.
Nice bike, by the way. I like that.
Нормально выехал.
Yeah, it got blasted though.
Последняя вот такая вот картина. А вчера здесь проехал. Он сейчас сделает.
Man, you know, we gotta hit the vlog music on this. Alright, everyone, it looks like my dirt bike has been blown up, but that's okay, because Vadim over here, he has been able to steal a ladder. We're going to ride to Achmenmino on the ladder, blade. Let's go! Or something like that.
Ну, аж вон до туда. А, говноед.
And then reality hit Vadim. He's not living a vlog. He's living reality.
Man,
Ублюдки, я до вас
dude,
доберусь.
that's deep. Anyways, moving on from that and into our next clip, we also get to see that the Ukrainians were hitting the Russians pretty hard down here as well. Whoa, hey, whoa. No copyrighted music, sorry, only travel vlog. Honestly, man, that's what they ought to start doing. They ought to just play...
Changes up the whole scene.
Yeah, it's just like a fun ride through the wheat fields or something.
When an explosion happens, pause it instantly.
Dude, I'm gonna try, man. Okay, everyone, now we're gonna grease some Russians. Isn't it fun? I really like the color of this wheat field. Yeah. It's...
Over here, we have the majestic tree line. You have to take a look at this. It's amazing.
No, man, you missed it because we're getting that drone shot. You sit there with that music playing, you go, and also we got some really nice sweeping shots. And then you let this play without any commentary or anything.
Yeah.
Oh, dang, it's coming to an end. Oh, well. But anyways, we can see
it faded out perfectly. Man, that might be a new category of stuff that YouTube's never seen before. Lo-fi chill hop war scenes.
Dude, what if we ended up like starting that as a theme? Like the Ukrainians started to use this kind of music in their videos. I would get a huge laugh out of that if this became a trend. But moving on from that, we also got to see the Ukrainians ended up getting a near miss today on their buggy. Because while the Russians have their buggies, the Ukrainians also have theirs. They almost ended up getting hit on this one today, but luckily they didn't. We see them... Oh, we're going to be muting that, but there was the FPV drone right there, and they're still rolling. It missed by, like, just feet. But now they're speeding this thing. They're going as fast as they possibly can to get out of there. They better watch out, though. These things can flip. But that's the end of that clip. Pretty wild to see. Interesting to know that the Ukrainians were able to survive it. Beyond that, the front's not really moving in Pokrovsk any longer. Big success! Moving on from that and down in the area of Volodar, we also got to see a little birdie. Look at that little birdie. It's trying to eat him.
Man, everything's violent out here, I'm telling you.
Dude, that thing said, "Suga, bля, пиздики ты нахуй," and then it flew off. It's like, oh man. But anyways, still, interesting observation, Matthew. I never thought of it that way. But moving on from that and down to the Kherson, Matthew. You know what happened down here today?
Some fighting.
It's Nona, business. Because some Nonas got blown up. Oh, look at this one. Like, I don't even know what cracked the front of the hull like that, but it was a pretty big hit.
FPV дрона.
Oh,
it makes that metal look like it was just paper mache or something.
Man, just cracked the plate just like someone who's really angry. And look, you can see the inside and everything in there. Look at that. There's the driver's position right there.
Механик-водитель, к сожалению, погиб с этой машины.
But that Nona is no mo. And we also got to see another clip of another Nona that appears to have had an even more bad day in this area. Check it out. Any second now.
Так,
Here we go.
Прямо очередной танк. Андрюха нам помогает.
You see, we've had the problem with the road wheels. Dude, the Nona is gone.
Серега, твой набор как раз, кстати. Какие-то запчасти сейчас с ней.
Also, same toolkit I've got.
Yeah, it kind of does, actually.
Серега, вот приехали.
Oh, look, there's
that
a gun.
Amazon Stanley kit.
Yeah, it is. Why are they trying to repair the Nona? Look at the Nona, dude. It's gone. Like, it's literally pieces in the field. And they got a toolkit out here like they're gonna fix it. There's the Nona. Or what's left of it, at least.
They might be salvaging parts, like Matt said.
Сереге Мельнику.
No.
Oh, look, they're showing off the toolkit in all of its glory. Man, what is this? It's red. It's not Snap-on, I don't think, but it looks like a ripoff of Snap-on or something.
Snap-off. Like, it's Snap-off in Russia.
Man, at least you don't owe all your debt to the Snap-on, man, if you buy the janky set.
Man, that's true, man. That's true. But still, it's Snap-off. Like, we know it's going to be happening with Snap-off. Also, I like how they're playing some stupid song from some band in Russia called Lyub. It's literally called Lyub, spelled Lyube. Like, I know the song. It's about to go, something like that. But anyways, we can see them showing off the toolkit here because they're really impressed with this, like, $50 toolkit. And we can see them looking around here at the remnant of their Nonoblet.
They were saying it's the Temu kit. It could be. It could be. Someone said Harbor Freight. I don't know if they've got access to Harbor Freight.
Dude, they do have access to Harbor Freight. It's literally Harbor Freight. Like, they go down to the harbor and they pick up freight off the docks. They just lift it off the docks, steal it. Is what they say.
Wajao, Bing Shaling.
Whoa.
Wrench. Socket. Bing Shaling.
Look at that boiler. Whoa.
That's no boiler, that's just a chin.
Whoa, look at that double chin. Whoa. The Russian military is really going downhill these days. Whoa. Whoa, look at that boiler. I mean, he might be some kind of a chesty puller pulling some chest, but whoa, look at that boiler. But anyways, moving on from that, we do have big question to ask all of you. CIA says Russia was on the brink of launching nuclear weapons on Ukraine in 2022. Is that still a strong possibility? Some people say yes. Some people say no. Some people say I think the CIA is lying about this. Some others are unsure and undecided. But Matthew, what are people thinking, and what are you thinking as well?
All right, so we did get to hear today from the CIA director, William Burns. We call him boss. No, not really. But it says here in the poll, CIA says that Russia was on the brink of launching nukes on Ukraine in 2022, and is it still a strong possibility? And we heard today from William Burns that apparently Russia was like inches away from launching either tactical nukes or something like that at Ukraine out of desperation. So that happened all the way back in 2022, and now it's almost 2025, so that tells you quite a bit. So 44% said yes, it's still a real and serious threat, while 20% said no, Russia would never nuke Ukraine, and 19% said I think the CIA is lying about this. And I would have to say the 19%, I have no reason to believe the CIA is lying. They don't lie about anything, so I would have to rule that one out. I would have to say that it's probably still a real and serious threat, because if they were thinking about doing it 3 years ago, then surely they're still doing it now or thinking about it, is they're getting even more desperate. So why would they abandon the idea if they're getting more desperate? So I'm with the 44%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that it is it's a bit of a threat. It's not an incredibly serious one. I'd have to say, Manny, what the hell? You didn't include my option on the poll. Why didn't you include it? I'm just kidding with you. I'm just playing. I know a lot of people do that. But beyond that, I'd have to say it's kind of a halfway bit of a threat. It's kind of serious, not really. I don't really think the Russians would ever really nuke Ukraine. But at the same time, you really don't know. You don't know. So that would be my take, my opinion on this of all things. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're now going to be moving on into Kyiv, because we've got to get to the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 928 of the war. And so, without further ado, here is the speech. And let me change that audio track to Ukrainian, because we don't want to hear that, I wish you health, dear Ukrainians. And without further ado, here it is.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці, українки. Сьогодні вже почали працювати, щоб виконати всі домовленості з партнерами, які ми отримали на цьому тижні. Засідання Рамштайну, зустрічі в Німеччині, зустрічі в Італії. Окремо міністр оборони України і наші військові працювали у Франції, у Британії, також в Німеччині. Дуже розраховуємо на результат від розмови з міністром оборони Сполучених Штатів Остіном. Важливі перемовини були з канцлером Шольцем та головою уряду Італії Джорджіо Мелоні. Незмінно працюємо з представниками обох партій в Сполучених Штатах Америки. На полях форуму в Італії провів зустріч із делегацією Конгресу США. Говорили, зокрема, про план перемоги для України, про певні його деталі. А повністю ми представимо всі кроки президенту Сполучених Штатів Байдену і обом кандидатам у президенти Трампу і Гарріс. Головне для нас зараз на початку осені максимально зміцнити позиції України, українців, захист наших міст, сіл від російського терору, звичайно, більше можливостей нашим воїнам на фронті. Це і Покровськ, Торецьк, Курахівський напрямок та інші точки найбільшого зосередження російських сил. Дякую кожній бригаді, кожному підрозділу, які дійсно стійко тримають позиції. Цей тиждень дав нові домовленості щодо снарядів для України, щодо фінансів для виробництва зброї, дронів, ракет в Україні. ППО – незмінний пріоритет. І ми продовжуємо на всіх рівнях переконувати партнерів щодо далекобійності. Росія може ухилятись від пошуків миру рівно настільки, наскільки світ ухиляється від сильних рішень заради поразки для Росії. Далекобійність – одне з таких ключових стратегічних рішень. Дякую всім в світі, хто допомагає нам наближати ці, безумовно, необхідні кроки партнерів. Зараз заголошені кроки на Рамштайні за іншу допомогу, яка була погоджена саме на цьому тижні. Я хочу відзначити Німеччину, Америку, Британію, Канаду, Іспанію, Нідерланди, Швецію, Норвегію, Румунію, Литву і Латвію. Дякую всім вам, друзі. Ще одне, початок цього вересня, на жаль, був позначений жорстокими російськими ударами. Лише після удару по Полтавському інституту зв'язку досі на лікуванні в стаціонарі 220 поранених. Серед них є і важкі, дуже важкі поранені. Дякую всім лікарям, всім медичним сестричкам, які стараються дуже допомогти, стараються зберегти якнайбільше життів. І також я хочу відзначити рятувальників, весь колектив ДСНС України в Полтавській області, також в усіх інших областях, куди Росія спрямовує свої ракети і дрони. Дніпровщина, особливо Нікополь, Павлоград, інші наші міста, інші наші громади, наша Харківщина, Донецька область, Миколаївщина, Львів та область Львівська, Сумщина, і всюди в Україні працюють наші люди та всі необхідні служби, які рятують, які допомагають, які відновлюють. За цей тиждень велика вдячність усім працівникам ДСНС України на Полтавщині, особливо Анатолій Василенко, Олександр Скакун, Олександр Яременко, Владислав Юрченко, Микола Павловський, Віктор Кузьменко, Ігор Литвишко, Олександр Біданець, Роман Биховий, Ігор Поставний. Я дякую вам, хлопці, а також працівники Національної поліції України в Полтавській області, які допомагали рятувальній операції. Дякую всім вам, особливо Євгеній Лябах, Петро Схічко, Дар'я Курило, Михайло Лукошин. Дякую всім, хто працює та воює заради України, заради наших людей та наших інтересів, інтересів нашої держави, української держави. Кожен день, кожен тиждень мають робити Україну сильніше. Слава Україні!
And the Rom Slava.
Herom Slava.
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 928 of the war. And that wraps up our news segment for the night and moves us on into the second segment of this stream. The funnest one for us, because we get to talk to all of y'all. And we get to talk about all kinds of things, interesting things, fun things, cool things, funny things, anything and everything we get to talk about during this segment, except for, of course, the channel rules of politics and religion, which we generally don't cover here. But nevertheless, we have loads and loads and loads to talk about and to get to talk to y'all about. And it seems as though many questions have come through, Matthew. But also, I've heard that there's been a few top donors possibly in between the last segment and this one. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so there have been a couple of top donors here, and this one is from Andy L, who put in a $92 donation to the fundraiser, helping to bring us up to $4,159 raised of the $3,000 goal, and also Carl Pattison threw in a $75 as well. So huge shout out to Andy and Carl for that generosity on the fundraiser. We appreciate it very much, and Ukraine does as well. So with that, we're now moving into our question segment, the final one of the stream, and it will be a long-lasting question segment. But first, we have to get the Morse code decoders. And also, by the way, I see some folks saying, the CIA doesn't lie, really?
They don't.
That was sarcasm. That was sarcasm. It's in the nature of the business. You have to lie. It's sort of like the nature of intelligence. You have to do it. But anyways, jumping here into... what?
The CIA lies? Dude, the memo I got from the guy, he said that everything we say is true.
Man, no, I mean, you can say that.
Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh man, I'm telling you. But beyond that, I'm just kidding, of course. Just like Matthew, the CIA, come on, they can't say the truth about everything. I mean, come on, you think an intelligence agency is really good at intelligence if they tell the truth on everything? Come on, y'all. That wouldn't be in the trade. You kind of have to lie to be in the intelligence trade. It's kind of what you have to do. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Also, please to that one person who said that whole thing about the CIA doesn't lie. Please, we are sarcastic at times on the channel. And so if we say something that doesn't really sound like it makes sense, like the CIA never lies, it's probably sarcastic. Believe me. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, Colonel Angus said, what does any of this have to do with Ukraine? This is the question segment, Colonel Angus. This is time for questions. This is not time for violence. We won't have that in the live chat. No violence. But anyways, jumping here into our Morse code decoders of the stream. Tonight we had Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Renew, Kevin J, Paul Schultz, Dave Millsaps, Her Royal Fluffiness, and Arbel Garbo, who said, today's Morse code message says, Russia is once again landing drones in NATO, and nothing is being done about it, and we should respond. 73.
And that is the sound of money. And y'all got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. And I hope that y'all are proud because y'all have gotten that correct on the 928th day of the war. And it's pretty crazy to think it's been 928 days. It honestly feels like it's still about day 200 to me. Like for some reason in my head, the count of days stopped around the 200s. So whenever y'all hear me mess up, I'll be like, it's day 200. I mean 900 or something. Because in my head, it's still like in the day 200s. For some reason, I never moved on from that point. But beyond that, I've got to give y'all a huge shout out again. Huge congratulations for that. That's really impressive that y'all still got that correct. And with that, we are on to the next one. And the first real question, long-lasting question of the night. So what do we got, Matthew?
And we want a real question. We want a long-lasting question. We want question from Ukraine, from Ukraine, something like this. But anyways, this one goes to Mike, and he says maybe Russia is probing, and Romania does not want to show its hand. Could that be the case?
Well, maybe it's the case, but my counter to that is why would Romania care about showing their hand? It's not really like the Russians are going, does Romania have a military? Let's find out. And then when they shoot, they go, oh, they have a military. Like everyone knows Romania has a military, and everyone knows that they could shoot the drone down if they want to. The thing is that they're not. So yeah, maybe, but at the same time, showing their hand to what? That they would defend their airspace? I don't know. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one here is going to go to the away team, who said even if the drone attacks are intentional, what would be a proportional response? And any action would give Putin an excuse to take it further, in my opinion.
A proportional reaction would be to shoot them down while they're over NATO airspace. That would be the proportional response. I'm not saying that we have to go to war with Russia. I'm not saying that we have to get Putin's head on a spike or anything like that. I'm just saying the drones are flying in NATO airspace, and we should be shooting them down. We have a right to defend our airspace. If that's escalatory, then there has to be an escalation. The escalation is well deserved at that point, and the Russians are going to call that escalatory. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, because that's all I think that should be done. I'm not saying that anything extra should be done. We should just shoot them down. That's it. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next question from the chat goes to John B. Rempel, who said, it's all right for Belarus to shoot down the Russian drones. So if the enemy can do it, how come Latvia and Romania can't do it?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, that's what I've been saying. Like, why can't they do it? Why? What's the problem? What is the problem with shooting down something that's over their sky? Like, that's my question. Because they can shoot down whatever they want over their own skies. Like, they really can. So why in the world are they not shooting down Russian flying bombs? That makes no sense to me. And so I hope that does address that well. That is a really good rhetorical question, and that's exactly what I've been saying too. I completely agree with that. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, I see that Colonel Angus fella, he was apparently a bot, because then he came in and said, let's see, what did he say? He said, will NATO defend Poland and Germany from Ukraine?
Oh.
Well, gosh.
Oh,
jeez.
God.
But anyways, moving on from that interesting point, we're going to this question from Michael McMahon, who says, what will it take from the Ruskies to cause an Article 5 response, and what should our response to the Ruskies' attacks on NATO member states be?
Our response should be that we start shooting down their drones. And if there was ever a moment where Article 5 would be called, I don't even know when it is at this point, because you would think that it'd start being considered around now. But at this point, I wouldn't even know. I have no clue. Maybe when people got killed. I feel like that's a little too late at that point when people get killed. But that probably would be the time that we would start to see a consideration that Article 5 might be invoked. But then it's not even definite. It's probably a might. And so with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well, at least in my opinion. And also JC9 said, Enforcer, do you work for the CIA? In all seriousness, no. We joke about working for the CIA, but we don't work for the CIA. We're not on their payroll. Because if we were on their payroll, we wouldn't have to run ads. We wouldn't have to, have any, well, we don't run ads. We wouldn't have to take in super chats, would be the best way to say it, because we wouldn't have to worry about where we're making a living doing this from, because the CIA would be paying us. We wouldn't have to largely get paid by the pool of viewers that enjoy this channel and want to support it. So I guess that's...
And also, since when would the CIA hire a 24-year-old and a 22-year-old from Alabama? That's like the most improbable scenario ever the CIA would probably ever hire from. So, no, we don't work for them.
Yeah, yeah, we don't work for them. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here goes to Sarah Rose, who says, have you ever seen a Dragon's Breath shotgun round? And do you think they could make something similar for a tank, LOL? And funnily enough, Sarah Rose, I think it was for the Enforcer's birthday or something like that.
Christmas.
I actually procured, Christmas, that was it. I actually procured some Dragon's Breath shotgun rounds that spits fire basically when you shoot them out of a shotgun. So it's a huge explosion out the end of the barrel. Very cool. I don't think we've ever got to shoot them yet, because we're really not sure where to shoot them, to be honest, because it could start a forest fire. But it's pretty crazy. Like, it shoots out some really hot, like, I don't know what the substance is that comes out of it, but it's like a humongous fireball, like a flamethrower. But Enforcer, could they do something similar for a tank?
You can. It probably would be a great expense of the barrel's life, really, to be honest. So the best thing you'd want to do is you just want to attach a flamethrower to the tank, and that probably do about the same thing. And you can attach a flamethrower to the tank. The Russians actually had a specific one back in the day called the TO-55. There's an example of it on War Thunder. I can't find an example of it just out there in the world, so let me get you out to the War Thunder wiki and show you all this thing. It's an 8.0 in War Thunder, in case if anyone was wondering, but this thing actually has a flamethrower in this little thing right here. This little bulbous thing by the main gun, that's actually a flamethrower. So, yeah, you could do like something like a Dragon's Breath for a tank gun, but the flamethrower would have more range, and it would probably be much more effective instead of trying to make a specialized round for the main gun. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And very interesting question, though. I have to question, why are you asking such a question? Why do you need to know? But nevertheless, still an interesting...
They're trying to source some tank shells for their tank, I guess. Also, let's see, they said they believe that magnesium is the main ingredient in there. Maybe so. I'll have to take your word for it, because I really don't know. But it fires out. Also, someone said thermite. No, I don't think it's
No.
thermite. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it's not that. I don't think we're allowed to have that. That type of stuff. But it's probably just magnesium or a little something. But it really creates a fireball, though. I'd love to see it in real life. We got to find a place to actually like fire it, though.
Yeah, I would love to fire it one day, but sadly, a lot's flammable out there in the world: grass, trees, people, cars. Like you can't really you can't really find a lot to be able to safely shoot this thing around without everything catching on fire. And that's something that's scary to me. Is like these things are literally like incendiaries. You just fire them somewhere and everything will start to catch on fire. It's like that is actually scarier to me than a normal slug in a shotgun or anything like that. Because the slug, you fire it, it goes down range. It ends up buried in the dirt. That's the end of it. You go out there with a dragon's breath, you shoot it, something catches on fire, causes chain reaction. Now you got a wildfire on your hands. That just seems far worse than anything else that I could imagine in that kind of a situation, which makes me really scared to even go out and try and shoot those things. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Silver, who says, if the French went into Ukraine, how and what would they bring with them?
They would probably bring a pretty decent amount of armor heavy units. I know a lot of people are saying these days in their all-knowing wisdom that the tank is obsolete. The tank is not obsolete. The tank has to evolve, and this is about the time that tanks are starting to become obsolete in their current form, and they have to evolve into something a little bit different in the future to be able to survive, which means that a lot of countries are going to start racing to make new tanks. So as far as that goes, the French will probably bring in a decent amount of tanks. They'll probably bring in a decent amount of mechanized infantry as well, because in the plains of Ukraine, it's not necessarily about having infantry, because that can be a death sentence. It's really about having armor and superior firepower that can end up winning battles in these kinds of plains regions like this. So that's probably what they would bring, is a whole bunch of brigades that are armored or mechanized focused, and a decent amount of artillery support as well, along with Air Force support. So that would be my answer to that question. And also, I'm trying to see here some people throwing in some interesting stuff. I'll say the French would, let's see, the thermite needs to, well, I think I answered that fairly well, and I don't see anyone adding on to that, so I think we're good to move on to the next one. And so what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so our next one here is going to go to Jeff Veeder, who says that there is no news on mainstream U.S. media about the Russian drone in Latvia, and what would you recommend as a TV media source that covers this war? I don't see any. Now, real quick, I will say this, Jeff, because I've watched a lot of mainstream like TV news in my time, and honestly, I wouldn't recommend any news channel that's currently on the TV, like cable networks. I wouldn't recommend that. If you're looking for just like a good, like a general news source, you could probably just get your cables from probably Reuters. They usually put out really reliable stuff most of the time. Probably the most reliable news service there is left out there, to be honest with you, is probably going to be Reuters. But outside of that, honestly, not too many, because they're getting really sketchy with what they're putting out, because they have political like leanings to everything they put out these days and other organizations. But Reuters is pretty solid. But Enforcer, what about you? What do you think?
Oh, man, that's a rough one. Not CNN, not Fox. A lot of people say the BBC is pretty good. I actually disagree with that because I remember one day Matthew told me, and I remember I went back and looked at it, and he was right. They brought someone on, it was a guest, and they asked him a question. Apparently the guest said an answer that was not on their script or something, or it wasn't the right answer. They said, sorry, that's not correct. We're going to have to go to a break. And then they went to a break and they just kicked the guy off air. So as far as that goes, it's like you can't bring like an expert witness on your news channel and ask them, okay, expert witness, what is the answer to this question? And then they give you an answer. You go, wait a minute, that's not the question this channel needs. You need to go. Like, that's not how you are supposed to be running a news channel. So, I would say they're not really that credible. I would say that there's not really a lot of credible TV channels out there at all, really. So I would have to say not really any of them. I would generally get the news from here, or I would go to our Twitter account. Not to like plug our thing as like the only thing that gets reliable news, but we really do put a lot of effort and a lot of pride in trying to get our news as accurate as possible. So if you wanted news on this stuff pretty frequently, this is maybe the best that I can give at the moment. Because if I thought that there was anything better out there, I certainly wouldn't be running this, because someone would be beating us at our game. And I largely like to think that we're outdoing everyone. And if we're not outdoing them, we're working towards outdoing them. And so with that,
Also, just a little experiment. If you want to see how bad mainstream like cable news has gotten, this is when I realized it's completely unreliable. Because I'm pretty sure that everybody out there will agree that pretty much every news channel on cable news pretty much falls within one category or another. It's either on the left or the right politically. So if you go check one of those news stations on one side of the aisle and listen to what they're saying, listen to like an hour or two of it, and then switch over to another similar same side of the aisle type channel, and I guarantee you'll hear the exact same statements and the exact same wording said at some point or another during the course of one of those shows. You'll hear it because they give out these sheets which basically tell them what they're going to say, and they all generally sort of align with whatever's being said, because they give out like cheat sheets of what's supposed to be said on these certain channels, and they'll throw in certain phrases and statements here and there depending on what side of the politics the channel lies on. So that's when I realized, this is totally screwed. Like, this is messed up, and they're trying to push some sort of narrative instead of actual real news, and that's when I stopped watching it.
Okay, hang on. I actually want to prove this to y'all, like, about, like, the bias of news. So I pulled up two websites here. I pulled up CNN's and I pulled up Fox's. Now, all of y'all know what leanings those platforms have. One of them's left-leaning, one of them's right-leaning. Now, I'm going to show y'all what's on their main pages here, and I'm going to show y'all how the exact same, because funnily enough, they're actually both running the same story right now on the main page of their website, Matthew, but they're both writing it in a different way, and it's meant to convey a certain kind of an emotion or speak to a certain group of people on both of them. So I'm actually going to say, y'all, I'm actually going to show y'all what they're saying, so that way y'all can kind of get an idea. It isn't unbiased. It certainly is not unbiased at all. It's incredibly biased. So let me show y'all. Here is CNN. This is the number one thing on their page. It's a political thing, y'all know. And then the rest of it is just all kinds of stuff, like a Rembrandt painting and another interesting thing about the Georgia ordeal that happened, a very unfortunate thing. And then if you go over to Fox, you can see the exact same thing written differently. Like, look at this, already downplaying. And then on this one, it's, let's see, it takes an informal approach. So one of them is jabbing at one of them's jabbing at the other, as y'all can see, literally the same topic. But there is nothing at all about world events on any of this. Like, look, on CNN's page, nothing about world events at all. All of it is about political news or smaller domestic news here in this country. And then when you go over to Fox News, it's all politics as well. Nothing international at all. And it's very interesting to me for a news organization to claim their news, and you don't even see a single unbiased, objective, or neutral take on anything happening domestically, and you see absolutely nothing of world news at all. That's the thing where I can't recommend any mainstream networks, because everything is like that. Like, it's either in CNN's direction where it's leaning one side, or it's in Fox's direction where it's leaning another. There's not actual news out there anymore. It's more so echo chambering, so that way they can continue to make profits, because unlike news back in the day, which is how we largely try to run our channel, we don't run our channel with a profit motive as our main driver. Like, we have to make a living off of this, so we do have to be able to make a profit of a sort, and so that way we can, pay our bills and do this as a full-time job. But we're not trying to over-monetize this thing and focus on a bottom line running the channel. Other companies like Fox and CNN, they're not run like news channels of old, where it was expected that they were going to be taking losses, but those losses were subsidized by a larger television company that expected to take losses on that kind of programming. Modern news companies are made to where they have to be maximizing profits, and the way that they maximize profits is by making sure to echo the exact same thing that their audience wants to hear, focus on that entirely, because the more people they have on at any moment watching their show, the more expensive their ad slots are that they have on TV, and they're able to sell out those ad slots to people at a premium, and that's how those companies end up making a profit. That's how all of modern news works. And that's also how they work on their websites as well. Because the more news they push that people want to hear, like CNN knows and Fox News knows their audience's political leaning. So they're going to feed into that heavily because they want those people to keep on coming back and listening to their news. They don't want to give people the real news because if people hear the real news, it might disagree with what these people think in their heads. And people are a little bit too obstinate to change their actual opinion on something, even if something is contradictory to it and it makes sense to possibly change an opinion. People don't want to hear it. And those news companies know that. So to make sure that they keep on coming back and they keep on seeing the ads on their website or keep on seeing the ads on TV, they sit there and they just hammer home exactly what these people want to hear. And they never focus on anything else. It's not news anymore. It's editorialism disguised as news to make money. And that's why I can't recommend a single mainstream news channel on TV or really anywhere else, because that's really the model that all of them run off of.
Also, I saw Ron Burrell Jr. said in the live chat, he said, I do think that the news has become corporate, and that's why the news is not as good as it used to be, because, it's profit-driven. Just like the Enforcer was saying, they are profit-driven, like you said as well, Ron. And the interesting thing is, they used to do investigative journalism. That's all the stories that they used to spend, like, maybe a month or two working on, and then they would finally publish a story and also do a piece on it on the news networks. They all stopped doing that. Pretty much every network out there stopped doing it, and basically turned to talking head points like political discussions and leaving it solely at that and eliminating all investigative journalism because they said it was too expensive and they didn't want that eating into their bottom lines. So they found out we can just, like the Enforcer said, we can just play on people's political beliefs and just keep basically churning this cash cow over and over and do no real journalism. And that tells me it's okay, they're only caring about the money. They're not real, they don't have a passion for journalism. They just care about the money. So it's like, it's worthless as a news organization when they're just basically trying to tell you what you want to hear, which is worthless to me.
And also, I saw someone say, you can't fall to temptation, and Forceslan said it. You must keep your integrity. The temptation will always come to you. Actually, to be honest, the temptation doesn't come to me because no matter how well or how badly this channel has done financially in the background, I've never really wavered. In fact, I've never wavered. Matthew can tell you all that on my conviction to how the channel has run. Like, memberships have never been considered in the background. Sponsorships on our streams have never been considered in the background. Turning on the ads on the streams has never been considered in the background either. We keep this thing running the way it is. Because the one thing I also consider a currency is reputation, which a lot of people don't really consider a currency anymore. I consider reputation to be an incredibly important thing, and the trust that y'all have in this channel to keep doing our tried and true formula of what we've been doing for years now. And a part of that is making sure that our news is as up to date and accurate as it can possibly be, down to the minute, if possible. And also to make sure that we keep to our main tenets that we've been doing for years. And by doing that, we make sure to keep up a great reputation with all of y'all. And as long as we keep up a very good reputation, we never have to worry about anything being affected, like our living or people watching this channel. And then we don't have to start worrying about doing money grubbing things to keep this channel running. That's another thing that we largely consider. And in that, actually interesting enough, y'all will be wondering, why in the world do you consider reputation to be a currency? A lot of people don't. The reason why I consider reputation to be a currency, and y'all are about to hear like the most goofy thing ever, is because railroad companies back in the day used to consider reputation as important a currency as actual money. And when railroad companies considered that to be a currency, they would run their passenger rail services at a loss. Like, no company ever really made profits on passenger rail. Never was a thing. But they would run those services at a complete loss because they knew if they provided a premium passenger service to the traveling public, their reputation was going to be good. And in the future, when anyone would ever be considering business dealings, they'd go, Union Pacific, yeah, they actually run a really good passenger train. I really liked riding on it, and I've heard great things from everyone. I mean, it's a really solid company. They take care of folks. I think I'll do business with them. And that's how the railroad industry worked for really its entire history up until the present day when Amtrak took it over in the 70s, the passenger rail service side of things. But reputation is very, very important. It's incredibly important. And that's why we make sure to do what we do, the way we've been doing it for years, because I don't really consider money to be the driving motive of everything. Like reputation and everything could be at the expense of profit. That's an insane way to run a news channel. Reputation is really the foremost thing, the most important thing, and everything else will just follow after that if it does at all. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least how I've been trying to run this channel and make sure to show it. And that's also why we've made decisions that other channels never have. Like, for example, largely monetizing this channel only through super chats and having no ads and sponsors, and also clearly segregating where y'all's money goes, either to us or to a fundraiser. We're the only channel out there on the platform that actually clearly makes a separation for y'all to see in between where the money goes. A lot of people, really no one, I think, does that beyond us that I can think of. Like there's another channel out there. I'm not going to say their name, but I'll tell you something that me and Matthew saw that was very interesting. They always talked about how it wasn't for money, it was just for Ukraine. And then we went onto their merch store recently, it was about a month ago, and we scrolled down to the bottom because we were like, are they giving any portion of their, well, any percentage of their profits to, you know, Ukraine? Like, if they're giving more than us, we'd like to know. Because on our website, when y'all go to our merch store, y'all will see that at the bottom we say we donate 10% of our profits made on the merchandise sales to United 24. So we tell y'all exactly who the money's going to and how much of the percentage of profits is going there in an actual discernible empirical measure. So y'all actually have a great deal of certainty. Y'all know what's going to be going. But on this other channel's merch store, we scroll down to the bottom and we saw a very interesting but a very shady way of legally doing something to get around telling people how much it actually goes. Their disclaimer was a portion of the profits will go to helping Ukraine. That was the literal disclaimer at the bottom of the website. Now, to put that out there about how shady and non-transparent that is and how that could end up eating into one's reputation, saying a portion means nothing. It doesn't tell anyone what amount of profits is actually going somewhere, because a portion could be anything. It could be 99% or it could be 1%. It could be anywhere in between. And that's usually a very shady way to word something, so that way you can get away with giving out the smallest percentage of the profits possible while keeping the largest amount and making it sound good because you're giving money to Ukraine, but also no one really knows how much. And there's never any public disclaimers about that either. And the other thing is that instead of saying exactly where that money would end up, they just say to helping Ukraine. Now, where in the world does the money go to help Ukraine? It could go literally anywhere. And so, going off of that, that was something that we saw where we're like, boom, that's a massive red light. That's really sketchy. Because if you were trying to be as transparent as possible, you would do what we do, which is give an actual percentage number and then say exactly what group it's going to. So we say 10% of the profits to United 24. We don't say a portion to someone somewhere, because that is so indescript, it may as well be pointless. So that's what I would have to say about the whole reputation side of things. We generally see that others don't really follow that too much. And I would highly suggest to y'all, like with what I'm saying here about the merge store and stuff like that, make sure to keep a really, really close eye on that kind of stuff when dealing with other channels. We say this and then people get pissed off. I don't know why, because if they're doing nothing bad, they shouldn't be getting pissed off about a statement like this in the first place. But make sure to scrutinize other channels that you may be watching and look out for wordage like that here and there, because those kinds of words used in that sort of a sequence in a sentence usually are a very sketchy thing, and it usually means one thing: they're being a little dishonest and misleading people deliberately. We try not to do that on this channel as best we can. We try and make everything as clear as possible. Like with how we run a fundraiser like tonight, 100% of all of y'all's money is going to that nonprofit. We can't even touch the money because it's through YouTube, which is another layer that we tried to add to make sure that it's as transparent as possible, and y'all don't have to trust us. Y'all can trust YouTube instead, as a massive multi-billion-dollar corporation that will do the right thing because they don't want to get in a massive lawsuit and lose their shirt. So that's another decent layer of credibility that we have to this fundraiser. But then every other day of the week, you know that the money is going directly to us. So there's a very clear separation there. Instead of someone saying, give all of the money that you want to me, and then some of it will make it to Ukraine. That's also a really crazy way of doing things, because it's like, how in the world do y'all have any guarantee that a lot of your money or any of your money is going to Ukraine. You just gave it to someone, and they're never going to show you proof of where any of that money went. You could be giving them $100, and they keep all $100 of it, and they don't give any of it to Ukraine. I find that kind of stuff really questionable. That's why we run it this way. And that's generally why I tell everyone to be as cautious as possible. And I know a lot of people will go, oh, like, no one would ever do that. Yeah, but let me remind you of James Vasquez, though, at the beginning of the war, if y'all remember, who said that he was a hero of Ukraine. He was in the battles at Kyiv, and he was actually in Lviv, the farthest away he could be from the war the entire time, and racking up a massive tab inside of that luxury hotel in that city. Just remember that before you think that someone's always watertight, always scrutinized. Like, I'm more than happy that people scrutinize this channel, but I also wish that people scrutinize every channel equally and look for that kind of stuff, and be very leery if you ever see a red flag like that, because it's never a good sign. But with that,
let's see. Maxim Melting said, would you say there are any good channels that cover the war? Well, the Enforcer channel is pretty good. I'm a little bit biased on that. But honestly, there are some other channels that cover it pretty good. But to be perfectly honest with you, I won't plug them or nor say the name of the channel, because we've been treated quite badly by pretty much the entire pro-Ukraine community. So while I think there maybe are some channels out there that have merit, I simply won't plug them for that reason. But, there are some okay ones out there, but I'm a little bit biased. I think we cover it pretty good here. But, I mean, that's up to y'all to decide, because y'all are the audience.
If there was one channel that I thought actually did a good job, there's only one. Like, out of everyone I've seen, there's only one. I'm not going to plug him either, but y'all will wander around. Y'all will eventually find the person if y'all haven't already found him. It's a he, and this guy does really good at the research he does. He ended up being involved in the whole hot dog man a while ago, but once we explained the situation to him, he just stepped out and largely disappeared from the situation, which I respect, unlike other clowns who would hear the heinous stuff that this guy did to us, and then they just double down anyways and keep on going at us like we were the ones in the wrong. This guy actually heard what the guy did and then backed away, and I've got to respect that a little bit. Still not going to plug the channel's name or anything, but he's a pretty decent channel. He does great research on the stuff he does. I'll give him a great credit for that. But other channels, like being honest here, a lot of them don't really do a lot of effort, from what I can tell, because y'all know that we get to things within 30 minutes or an hour of them happening most times, especially whenever anything's breaking news. We try and get to them immediately. But then other channels will sit there on their ass and do nothing until a major news organization writes an article about something, and then they report on it, and they literally just read the article from the main news organization verbatim, which I find to be very lazy and very low effort for channels that are trying to laud themselves as actual news. They are far behind the news curve, and they're usually just copying off of other people. We usually try and get video clips and evidence, and then mesh all of those together to come up with a unified kind of an image and analysis. And we end up beating a lot of people on this stuff. Like, for example, probably one of the most recent ones that I can give is that the Ukrainians were able to stop the Russians in the Pokrovsk front. And I was able to put out a live stream on that 12 hours before Alexander Syrsky even made the official statement, because we had been seeing all of the video clips and evidence that was coming out that day, and it was very clear that they had stopped them. And so I came out on that stream, said that they had been stopped. It was a great deal. They've done a great job, and it was an incredible defensive. And then everyone sat on their ass for the next 20 hours nearly. Alexander Syrsky finally came out 12 hours after I made that stream and officially announced that the offensive had been stopped. And then about 8 hours later, everyone else on YouTube finally made a video about it. Although if they were actually working really hard on this stuff and paying close attention, they would have been able to say it at the same time I was saying it, because it was quite obvious at that point. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. But with that, we are on to the next one.
Now, we'll tell y'all for a fact something that is interesting. Even though we have been trashed by a couple of the other pro-Ukraine YouTubers out there, and we've had some bad blood in between them, some of them clearly do watch our channel, because we'll post a video sometimes and it'll go really well, and then all of a sudden that same channel will have almost a very similar thumbnail and a very similar wording, and also very, very similar talking points. And of course, there are just a few things you can say about certain topics, but their talking points will match up a little too closely. And I'll think, they clearly watched our channel before they made that video and clearly watched our video, and they just simply sort of ran with our talking points. And I guess that's flattery to an extent. You could look at it as flattery or also maybe stealing our talking points, either way you want to look at it. But they do watch us. I do know that for a fact, like from various sources. But anyways, jumping into our next question for the live chat. This one goes to Travis Nash, who says, have you heard the theory that Russia invaded Ukraine specifically for the Donbas region for the lithium deposits used for EV batteries?
We've heard that. We've also heard that it was for the gas deposits as well. We've largely heard that the whole Donbass thing is about natural resources. I would doubt it a little bit, because I think that the primary reason for the war was Crimea and the Black Sea Fleet access in that area. Because the thing about Sevastopol is that it's the only warm water port that the Russians currently have control of in the world. There's no other warm water port out there. And a lot of people kind of downplay logistics like railroads and ship transport, but ships and rails are some of the most important things in the world, especially for the Russians in terms of how they're able to keep their logistics running. And while every other port in Russia freezes over in winter, like St. Petersburg, like the far-flung Vladivostok out here in the west, Sevastopol never freezes over, so it's always open to some sort of maritime traffic at all times of the year, and it also allows their navy to be operational at all times of the year as well. And at the very beginning of the war in 2014, the one thing the Russians made sure they would never lose was Crimea, because they illegally annexed it within 23 hours of the start. Now, they didn't do that with the Donbass, because the Ukrainians had actually put up an effective fight in the Donbass and ended up crushing the separatists and the Russians that were in there. They would have been able to retake it, and there wouldn't have been that much of a problem made about that by the Russians. But if they tried to retake Crimea, the Russians, since then, have considered Crimea a part of Russia full on. It is an oblast of the Russian Federation, and it will be considered a threat to state sovereignty. So, going off of that, I would say that really, to me, the entire war has been fought over Crimea, because their opening diplomatic maneuvers in 2014 certainly showed that the one thing they never wanted to lose was Crimea. Everything else could be lost, but if Crimea was lost, the whole thing was for naught. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, at least off of what I saw at the beginning of this whole conflict back in 2014, which was, crazily enough, 10 years ago at this point. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Philip Southern, who says, could recent Western weak responses be designed to lure Russia into a first attack on NATO to legitimize NATO, and then pouring into Russia via Poland, Latvia, Finland in force?
I would doubt it, because we're largely trying to avoid a conflict. We're not trying to lure them into a sense of false security and then invade them and destroy them, because it will also end in nuclear war, so it's still not a good outcome for anyone there. So I would generally say the reason why we're allowing this is not from a position of strength. It's from some sort of position of cowardice, is the best way I can explain it, because we could shoot them down. And if we shot them down, either way, the Russians could end up first striking us anyways, and then we end up responding either way. So I would have to say, in my honest opinion, it's just from a position of weakness. I don't know why we're in a position of weakness like that. It's not like the Russians are stronger than us. It's more so of a mental thing, and I don't know why that's an issue at the moment. But with that, I hope that does I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And also, let's see, I saw Juana McIntosh. She said, one location on the merch store says a portion goes to support Ukraine, while further along, you say the percentage. And yes, on the landing page of the website, and also, I believe, maybe on the product listings as well, I list it's 10% of the profits. So yeah, we do define that, to make that very clear on the website. We don't do that portion junk where it's like, oh, like maybe a bit or a piece might go here or there. And also, we post receipts when we actually give the money over to whatever charity, which is United 24, and we basically, I think you get to choose a category or something like that, but it goes to like one big fund in United 24. So I think it really doesn't matter what category you pick, to be honest, but it simply goes to Ukraine and United 24. We do say that 10% goes there, and we post a receipt, and you can actually see the raw amount that was actually sent. So we're very transparent. Like, nobody else I've ever seen does that with their merch, which is something that should be standard. But I think some people are afraid of that transparency. I think it might scare them a little bit. But anyways, moving on here to our next question. This one is going to go to, let's see here. I had one. Where'd it go? This one goes to Rubberman. Rubberman. He said, it's highly unlikely that NATO isn't actively engaged in deciding what to do about the drones entering NATO countries.
And let's see. Let me go and read that one really quickly. Let's see here. Where was that one, Matthew? Where was that one?
Right here in the middle.
Right here in the middle. Oh, there we go. It's in green.
Rubberman.
Let's see. Well, I would say that it's not unlikely for sure that we're trying to talk about what we're going to do about them, but I think that we're talking about not doing anything. Like, I'm sure that Poland, Romania, and now Latvia are all coming forward and saying we have to do something, we have to shoot them down, and America's going, no one's shooting anything down, everyone's going to sit back and do nothing. I'm sure that's the kind of discussion that's going on, because that's what we've seen bubble up to the surface here and there, but it's no discussion that's having any kind of forward progress. It's largely just, creating friction but getting nowhere at all. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is, you're taking my life. Who says, why have so many countries made pledges to Ukraine for weapons, air defense, etc., but they're not delivering it? And what's the holdup, and why promise it if you don't have it?
That's a good question. It's largely the Germans that have done that. The Germans are the best example. Everyone else has done that on a very, very, very small level. But the Germans, I believe, have only given half of what they've pledged, and the other half is being held up practically indefinitely. The reason why that is because Germany is a very weird phenomenon in terms of the military support that they send. They send support, but for some reason, there's this really the best thing I can call is like a pacifist camp in Germany, where they're like, oh, we can't do anything aggressive because we're Germany, and we did this thing back in the 40s. And it's like, that's a really stupid argument, because it's like, that's not Germany. That's a country that died a long time ago, about 80 years ago. Germany's living in a new age these days, and it's like, it needs to get with the program. That's kind of what slows down the Germans a little bit, from what I can tell, is like this pacifist camp in the German government that largely doesn't want to support any fighting efforts, especially against the Russians, because it makes them almost look like, in their minds, I guess, that they're like some sort of a successor to Germany in World War II, or that specific Germany. But beyond that, I can't really explain the phenomenon better than that. That's maybe the only explanation I can come up with off of the top of my head right now. I'm sure there's others, but Germany does have the tech and the equipment to be able to send to Ukraine for the remaining half that they pledged. It's just that they don't want to do it for some odd reason. But with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we've reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank each and every one of y'all once again for watching tonight. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to run this stream, and it's absolutely incredible to know that we raised $4,210 for Nova Ukraine, an amazing nonprofit that has been helping out folks all over Ukraine since day one of the war. And so with that, I hope that you all had a great time watching tonight. Make sure to tune in on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to hear the next 48 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks. And once again, huge shout out for another successful fundraiser. $4,210 raised, well above the goal, and huge shout out to the LSA for making that possible once again. We'll see you all again on Tuesday night for the next night of War News stream at 10 p.m. Eastern. And also, the Enforcer might see you all midday tomorrow for a short war summary. But with that, I'm about to go hop on GTA Online and go hop in my fighter jet and fly around a little bit, to be perfectly honest with you. And I hope y'all get some rest, take it easy, and of course, Slava Ukraine. Heroem Slava, and we'll see you all on Tuesday, and good night.
Yes. The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.